Gonna need some help, Mr. Mayor. Everybody join in, please. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Car ton bras s'est porté le pays, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you. We acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee peoples, the Mohawks of Akwesasne, the original keepers of this land. As settlers, we are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Justin Towndale.
Present.
Councillors Claude McIntosh. Dean Hollingsworth. Maurice Dupel.
Present.
Sarah Good.
Present.
Caroline Hébert.
Présente.
And Councillors Elaine McDonald.
Present.
Sid Gardner.
Here.
Denis Sabourin.
Present.
Todd Bennett.
Present.
And Frank Gunjo.
Présent.
All present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda? Councillor McIntosh.
Yeah, I'll be declaring a conflict when it comes to the Seagreen News issue. I draw a small paycheck from them each week. Small.
Thank you.
I have a few changes, Mr. Mayor. So we're going to be asking for the unfinished business item number 1 to be moved and dealt with immediately following the presentation on the same matter. And also communication item 1, community risk assessment, be moved to be dealt with immediately following a presentation on the same matter. And finally, we would like the addition of resolution 2023-04, immigration, refugees, and citizenship of Canada.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to pull number 6 from the consent to communication, please.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any further amendments? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Councillor Good, Councillor Hebert, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Any further disclosures of interest? Councillor Hebert?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm hoping that we can pull bylaw 2023-010 to be voted on separately, as I need to declare conflict of interest as my employer may be relocated to that space.
Thank you. Councillor Ngunjo?
Yes, I would like to declare a conflict of interest on the communication report, item number 3.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to move into committee of the whole, please? Councillor Gardner, seconder. Councillor Sabare, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Adoption of the minutes from the, sorry, 1 second.
That is not correct, Mr. Mayor. That would be
Adoption-
January 23rd.
Yeah, adoption of the minutes from the meeting of January 23rd. Councillor Gardner, seconder. Councillor Good, all in favor?
I wasn't here.
I'll ask again, please, all in favor?
I wasn't here.
Thank you, carried. Presentations.
Our first presentation this evening is Eric Duncan, MP, and he's going to be giving us greetings and updates.
Welcome, MP Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Do we want to do the newspaper digitization first, perhaps? Do
Yes,
that?
please.
Do the easier one, I think, first, perhaps, tonight. Hopefully, anyway, we'll see. Members of council, administration staff, good to be with you here tonight. I apologize for the delay for the members of last council. You will recall I did a presentation to talk about the expansion of a volunteer project that had great success in the United Counties over the course of the last couple of years, and that has been the effort to digitize community newspapers in both Glengarry and in Dundas, where the majority of community newspapers had been over the years. What started off was a big undertaking, got bigger and bigger the more we kept getting donations and donations of hundreds of thousands of newspaper pages across SD&G. From the Glengarry News to the Winchester Press, Iroquois Chieftain, Morseburg Leader, and so forth, we were able to go back well over 100 years in many cases and preserve to digitize, but also making them accessible online and in many cases searchable as well. And we had a great working relationship with County Council at that time to complete that and fund that project. To date, well over 250,000 pages have been done, and we probably still have 25, 30, I'm going to say probably now 40,000 pages. An example, last week, a family randomly came forward and said they had, from the Williamsburg Times of the 1930s, they had a full 10-year run of the papers, which we didn't think even existed. So we are continuing to work through the good problem of getting funding and getting options to digitize even more. I had the opportunity to come to council, and kind of taking my MP hat off and my volunteer hat on for this part of why I'm here is looking to replicate. And I wouldn't say replicate in terms of needing to restart everything all over again, but I think to build on what had been started in the counties in the hopes that we can get a similar partnership with council. And in the case of the city of Cornwall, the Standard Freeholder, the Seaway News, and even possibly La Journal, that's had different iterations over the years as well. So after a couple years, I will take responsibility of a few of my hats and navigating things. We had some great meetings with administration in the new year to discuss how we can move this project forward, of which you have the action item before you tonight. One of the things we're proposing is, if you look behind in the presentation, this is the existing website that was created through the county's program. We would work, as you see in the resolution, to come up with a more common SDG Cornwall website, have Cornwall branding on it as well. And this is the searchable format of where those 250,000 newspaper pages are to date. And what you can do is, the best part is not only the preservation of that newspaper by having it saved and digitized online, it's also OCR searchable. So part of the feature we had with that is you can type whatever name you want in and topic you want to research. I was teasing tonight I was going to put a council member in, or thought, but I better not do that for public search that way. But it is fun to do that every so often and go back. I found my birth notice from the Winchester Press in 1987 with my family as an example. And the one thing I'd say as well, since using this website and having it, municipal staff, I know, have found a great value for this. I'll give you an example back from North Dundas, where I was mayor before. The development of a park in Hallville had been discussed for 25, 30 years. Most of the staff originally around the table had retired or moved on, and the institutional knowledge, the context was sometimes lost in documents in that transition. We were able to search Hallville Park and found numerous articles from the Winchester Press and Chesterville Record. The minutes were helpful, but they were obviously generic that they accept this report. We were able to get quotes from council members, quotes from delegations, and helped us piece together the puzzle. And actually, you'll see some municipal staff now find articles, screenshot them, and include them in their council saying, here's some information from something of years past, which has been very, very helpful. Genealogy, it's been helpful. And this also preserves the history of a lot of service clubs. So I know Lions clubs, Rotary clubs that have celebrated anniversaries, we're going back and looking for old pages and clippings to celebrate their events and promote their history. So what we would like to do with this, with council's agreement in the action item tonight, is a few things. But through the website, as opposed to creating their own, your own website and having to search in two places, administration has worked with county administration to have one unified website. The servers can cooperate and all the things. So again, the public that's facing this can see this as a partnership, do one search and have access to hundreds of thousands of even more, as opposed to searching on a separate website. Very easy to do, very easy to use, very cost effective in terms of this website. And again, I would say that all the behind the scenes backbone stuff through the IT team is definitely doable in terms of what to go on there for. For the actual newspaper digitization themselves, we had a partnership. So in 2019, we put an RFP out for companies to bid on this. Image Advantage, I believe I would look to the city to say they have an established relationship with the city, perhaps in years past. I would say the overwhelming majority of municipalities in Eastern Ontario, they digitized all the old minutes going back years and years. So they are well known in the municipal community. They were the only business that made a bid on this because, again, there aren't a lot of companies out to go and do this, and not a lot of companies that can digitize 250,000 pages in a reasonable time frame. We went back to them in conversations of this and not wanting to restart the effort. They had committed to honoring the current RFP that was used, the last one that was used by the counties. And considering today's economic and inflationary environment, they offered to keep the price. So I think administration, they know the templates, they know the uploading, they know the information of what we need to have. I would say through the resolution, it would be a sole source using a previous RFP at a matching price. But we are ready to go with the first part of the project to have it proceed, and that being the digitization of the physical copies of the COA News over 35 years. That could be done quite quickly. What I'll just say in the action request that you have before you, it asks up for $75,000. That's not going to be the cost to complete the COA News to clarify. That would likely be about a third. I think what administration and staff were looking for was that buffer to set up some of those initial IT synergies, the server space to have all of that. So as we get that collection done and can tackle the standard freeholder, which is a bit more complex, there are some funds and some ability to get going and to do this and to get into routine and rhythm of all of that. So this has been exciting. It's been a personal passion of mine as a bit of a history buff and history nerd. And I think one of the things I've said in summary of all of this is two things. There's so much information in worthwhile things like newspapers to preserve. We often don't know where they are. So the first project we did brought a lot of stuff into public light, public ownership we were able to know about, and then also I think preserve forever and a day. We were one fire away from the Winchester Press or Chesterville Record that would lose a massive amount of our community documented history. So I think if we're able to proceed with this, I think would be a project that would benefit the city of Cornwall, many users, staff, councils for generations to come. So we would ask for council's support of this. I apologize again for the delay, but I think tonight we're at a spot with a credible option to hit the ground running and actually start to see some results here in the coming months. The last thing I'll just say is the COA News would be the easy part, but I'm glad Hugo here from the standard freeholders here as well. The freeholder presents some more complexities, and where we're able to work with Image Advantage even further is if we don't have the physical copies of the paper, if it's on microfilm or another format, we are still able to work with Image Advantage in that framework to actually have them copy the microfilm, make it OCR searchable, and do some other things along those lines. So that is obviously a larger collection, a bit more sparse in terms of where everything is, but I'll give Hugo credit and Rick Shaver from the COA News. Sometimes you don't get cooperation from the newspaper companies themselves. They came right to the table and have been great partners in the volunteer effort of all of this. So I'm happy to take any questions on that, Mr. Mayor, and go from there.
Thank you, MP Duncan, for that. Before we get to questions, can I just get a motion to receive the presentation? Councillor McDonald, Councillor Dupel. Questions? Councillor McDonald.
Well, I'd like to actually move the recommendation that we refer this matter to administration and just to get that on the table.
We'll vote on receiving the presentation first, Councillor McDonald, and we'll
Okay,
accept the motion
let me
after.
move to receive it. And then by way of a question, a comment, actually, thank you so much for coming back and bringing this back to our table. I think it's an invaluable endeavor on your part and invaluable to us as a community. We have to be part of that project. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Duncan. I really appreciate it. I'm a bit of a historian myself, and where I've gone back to 1757 with my parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. I have all the history of their deaths, their births, and on the Pado side, which is my mother's side, We go back to Saint-Rémy de Dieppe in France, so I'm interested in history, and I hope that we can get this going. Thank you for that.
Further questions or comments? Councillor Bennett?
Thank you. Yeah, this is a great project. To me, I think it's kind of easy to support, but I do have a question. I believe you said in your comments, Mr. Duncan, that 75,000 was about a third of the cost of the project. Do we know what the other 2/3 are coming from? Will that be coming back to us, or is there other funders?
So to clarify on that, I think the actual digitization that would go to Image Advantage would be around a third, 40% of the cost. The remaining parts, I think, would be, in administration would clarify, I think, is looking at, I looked at Tracy to Mark, is server space, or even the IT server space, and then some of the synergies needed to cooperate and tap into that website. And I'm terrible for data points and proper words, but when you're doing, one of the things that the counties had done, they thought they had the server space, and I don't want to say it was like 2 terabytes by the time you get the high resolution of them done. The high resolution's not done on the website because that would crash probably a website and be very expensive to do. But a lower resolution that's still printable and viewable in that regard. So a lot of that stuff is the IT. I don't think it would all be used for that, but then the idea would be we could start into the freeholders and other parts of the community newspapers as it goes. So I think it was up to get started of the Seaway Newses, some of the IT, the infrastructure, and then those remaining funds and updates would be provided along those lines.
Councillor Gunjo?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for this amazing project. You know, history is something very powerful, and it helps us to remember our identity. I wanted to ask you, do you have an idea of when this project is going to be available, the whole one?
I'd love for it to be tomorrow, but I would say the Seaway News, in the conversation with Image Advantage, I've had several conversations working with them with Jim Burnell on the Lost Villages. We are digitizing all the photos of the Lost Villages as well. We're doing about 7,000 to 10,000 photos there, and we have a very good working relationship. So we can get, Rick is ready to drive them, Rick Shaver's ready to drive the Seaway Newses down to Maitland, but I would say the Seaway News collection, if approved by council, would likely be done over the course of the summer. And I've already had conversations. I don't want to take any thunder away from Rick, but we would actually probably do an event launch here in the city for that digitization, and be at the library and have an event to showcase and how people can search. The freeholders, we can begin to go, as I mentioned again, there's physical copies, there's microfilm copies, different people have different parts of the possession. Another opportunity through all this is the Archives of Ontario and National Archives also have pieces that can fit in. So I would say the Seaway News is an immediate short-term completion we can do, and then we will work out, I'm going to guess the freeholder will take the better part of a year or more just to kind of put that together. I'll also just give credit to that question, as part of that answer to your question, is the Cornwall Community Museum. Don Smith has been fantastic to work with. He and I go back and forth with spreadsheets and numbers and additions and what's been done. They've been a fantastic community partner that I think are going to expedite the complicated process.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hollingsworth?
Just a question of clarification, Your Worship. We're just speaking on the motion to receive currently, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion, questions? Okay, on the motion to receive, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Councillor McDonald?
I move the recommendation that this go to the administration for a report.
Is there a seconder?
Mr. Mayor, if I may interrupt, the report is in this agenda and is up for discussion now. If I could read the motion. So this is the report from Unfinished Business Number 1, Newspaper Digitization Project, with the following recommendation: that council consider funding the cost of digitizing, sorry.
It takes a bit, don't worry.
The physical Cornwall Seaway News publication, 35 years, at up to $75,000. B, that council approve annual financial support for the ongoing database hosted by the upper tier of Stormont Dundas Glengarry, as described in this report. And C, that if council approves this project, council award the contract for the work as a sole source to Image Advantage Solutions from Mallorytown, as SDG selected this supplier through a competitive procurement process in 2019, and a supplier would offer the city the same terms and conditions as its contract with SD&G.
Councilor McDonald?
So do I gather then that we're bypassing the administration report and going right to those recommendations?
That is the report from administration.
Oh, wonderful.
from the
Okay.
Office of the
Well, I'm really
CAO.
proud to move that.
Seconder? Councilor Hubert, discussion. Councilor Hollingsworth?
Your worship, I studied history in university, history degree from Carleton University. I teach history at the local high school, civics as well. Certainly I appreciate the merit of history, but I'm not going to support the motion. Currently, the inflation rate's running about 6.5%. If you want to borrow money, you're going to look at around 6.5%. We have a municipal budget, if we voted in favor of it today, somewhere around 6%. There are many people in our community that aren't going to get raises of 6 or 7%, probably not even close. This is going to be a difficult year, Your Worship, and I realize $75,000 is not an astronomical sum of money, but timing, in my humble estimation, just isn't there. It's really going to be a difficult year. My colleagues across the table, one in particular, Councillor Gardner, has expressed the difficulties our residents are feeling at great length over other issues, but you can't cherry pick one issue versus another. So, as much as I appreciate the merit of the project, been a student and a teacher of history myself, I just can't face the taxpayers and say, you don't mind spending 75 grand this year that you kind of haven't budgeted for, right? You're okay with that? That being said, next year maybe, the year after perhaps, but this year I'm not going to support this. Thank you.
Further discussion. Councilor McDonald?
Well, I'd like to say that the price is not likely to go down, and this is a multi-year project, and we're asking for $75,000 now to begin, and we delayed this once. And I have to say that we're experiencing so much change in our community and in society at large. What we can hold on to and use as a guiding star, in a sense, is our history and our past. And if we let it be lost for want of $75,000, we're actually jeopardizing the foundation of all the work we're trying to do today. So this isn't just a love of history, it's a reverence for literacy and learning and knowledge, self-knowledge, and knowledge of our past, where we've come from. Otherwise, it's really difficult to chart a course forward unless you know where you've been. So, spend the money.
Councilor Hubert?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm definitely behind this, and maybe I would have supported it 20 minutes ago, but just getting to dig around on this site has really brought me back. Finding my letter to Santa from when I was in second grade is lovely, but I've just found the article for when my grandfather, who's 94 today and still with us, when the Alexandria Council voted for him to be part of the volunteer fire brigade, am I saying that right? Brigades, thank you. In 64. And that's just super special because he's a huge part of my life, and I feel like these are moments I never would have had the opportunity to see without this amazing project. And I will take this back to him and show my family. And I just searched my mother's name, and there's 34 results. So looking forward to digging deep a little bit there. So I'm very much in favor because I know that not just my family will be able to take advantage of digging into our family history, but so many others. So, and especially adding, the Cornwall papers, this is really spectacular.
Councilor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As much as I'm a history buff, as Councillor Hollingsworth suggested, we're going into budgets. And I'll vote against it now until we're through with the budget and find out what we can afford and what we can't afford. So, with all due respect to you, I'm in favor of it, but not right now until I find out where the dollars are gonna come from. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further comments? Councilor Sabra?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a former journalist, I see tremendous merit in this type of program. As Councillor McDonald has said, if you don't have your history, you don't know where you're going, and that. Just a quick aside here, Eric, I'm disappointed that Rural Route wasn't part of all of the publications there.
Try to find and get us some copies.
But where I'm getting at is there is merit into this, because right now we're in a phase with all of our media exploitation development that is happening, of losing the roots, the foundations of so much of our events and that. And the most authoritative historian seems to be someone called Google, who always seems to have half the story right in that. And I think sometimes when you have the advantage of getting to the real source of knowledge, you take advantage of it because it has a service in that. So for that reason, I'm going to be voting in favor.
Additional comments?
I waive a wrap then, if I may?
Councilor McDonald? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I would assume, since administration, this was administration's report, that administration has looked at the financial source. So I wonder if administration could tell us where they have allocated, from whence they have allocated the funding for this.
Ms. Bailey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This project came to us after we put together the budget book. So we are recommending that the funds be taken from working reserves and contributed back in a future budget year as per policy.
Thank you.
Okay, calling the vote. All in favor of the motion? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. MP Duncan, would you like to report back on federal activities?
I can do that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you again for the opportunity. I had said to, when I was speaking with the CAO on the previous project about coming to council, I said I also feel I'm due, with the new council, due an MP delegation. That was about a month and a bit ago. What a difference a week can make. I was going to come before you tonight and give a update on many topics. I think Transport Canada waterfront lands, VIA and Varden House, and some of the infrastructure projects. I would still like to do that and would offer to come back with my views and perspectives. Sadly, there's not as many updates and movements on those topics, but I would be remiss tonight if I probably didn't take my opportunity in the delegation to speak to the recent news and frustrations that I think we all have regarding the new-ish or expansion, I should say, of the IRCC processing center, first at Dev Center and more recently at the former Ramada property on Brookdale. I'm assuming most of you had the opportunity to read the public statement that I'd provided to the media and on social media a couple of weeks ago. And I think I tried to convey the frustration that we had of many months of local partners behind the scenes trying to get information and details about what was happening and try to provide what I would say is some order to the chaos that we were seeing behind the scenes. I made the decision to go public. It was not my necessary responsibility to do so. And in conversations even with the city and other local partners that had concerns or questions about what was going on and some of the communication and resources allocated to it. There were two things that I think were a tipping point for needing to put a statement out and getting it on public record. People had known about it, there was rumors and rumblings, and people were piecing things together. But the expansion of the contract or of the locations from the Dev Center to the Ramada was very frustrating, again, through the same principle of zero notice, zero consultation, and zero supports and resources, but also the sudden decision in mid-January to cut several local partners that had stepped up. I'm thinking of ACFO's Crossroads program that was brought up very quickly to try to address, again, I would use the chaos of the system that was there that was not well serving local partners nor the individuals that were being housed and fed at the locations. And they also had some local healthcare providers that had stepped up very quickly in a time of need. And with about 3 days' notice, they cut those services, brought in outside providers, and we went back to square one of anything of where we were. I've said this, you know, zero notice, zero consultation, zero resources, I think equals about zero respect for local communities who are being impacted by this. Cornwall's not the only one that's going through this similar frustration. Niagara Falls, and there's a few other cities that have recently had hotels that have signed contracts, and they've not had any IRCC leadership to help coordinate the rest. I'm not going to talk tonight about the national issue of Roxham Road and where we're going with that. I thought the mayor's statement in many ways over the course of the last couple of weeks were very well done and very well balanced on the issue. I think Cornwall's benefited immensely from immigration, particularly the past couple of years. The increasing diversity we have and new Canadians that are moving here is a wonderful thing. And I don't think the frustration and what's been happening with the IRCC processing center and the lack is any sort of deflection from Cornwall's welcoming. The community has been welcoming and will continue to be welcoming in that way. The part that bothers me is this is a disturbing trend again of where we've had several projects of a federal nature that we've not got timely response or communication from the federal government on. I can give an inch and say I'm an opposition member. I'm not a member of the government. I'm not a member of the Liberal government. And I could say, okay, perhaps they don't want to communicate too much with the opposition member of parliament. I think, frankly, they should let the local member of parliament know when things are happening, ask how things are going. That would be a basic sign of respect, number one. But what further frustrated me was the great administration you have here at the city that had been impacted in numerous ways that didn't get the respect any more than I did. And this isn't about me. I think it goes back to social services. It goes back to law enforcement. It goes back to education, public health, the economic development impact of some of the recent decisions. Nothing had been made on this. I continue from my statement to get it out there. A week and a half later, IRCC did provide a public acknowledgement of that they had a contract and some of those basic details. But I will tell you, I remain concerned. I understand that some officials have been reaching out to more local officials. Better progress, sure, in the of picking up the phone and offering a meeting. I just remain very, very concerned at the perspective that IRCC Canada has when it comes to their leadership role in this processing center. I won't speak for others, and perhaps staff or administration may want to elaborate to you at a different time or in their own context. But having a meeting is not an outcome. There's been a fundamental disregard or an understanding of the local impact. So on social services, on staffing, on our education system, on health and the coordination. There have been an amazing number of volunteers out of the goodness of their heart, faith communities, not-for-profit groups that have stepped up and heard about this over the last couple of months, offering to help, offering to try to coordinate rides to medical appointments and so forth. And we've not been well served in terms of everybody being left on their own. IRCC says, look, we only have the responsibility to provide the room and food. Everything else is a provincial or a municipal or somebody else's. They are different jurisdictions for sure, but if IRCC is to bring a national, international processing center into any community, Cornwall or Niagara Falls or wherever, the fact they don't fundamentally understand, they need to have people on the ground and they need to be a pinwheel to coordinate, not only to coordinate weeks in advance, we didn't even get that. We were weeks into the expansion, we were weeks into the program happening when many local officials were only engaged at that point. The mindset there continues to frustrate me, and I'm hoping as we've ratcheted the pressure up to respond. I'm grateful that different groups have stepped forward to comment and share their experiences. There's so many ripples and webs into this, it's very complicated, but at the end of the day, this serves nobody well, the way that this program is being communicated and operated. It doesn't help the city, but most importantly, it doesn't help the human beings that are caught in the middle at the Dev Center and at the former Ramada. They are obviously in a very emotional state, in a very vulnerable state from wherever they may be coming from around the world. And what is frustrating is that I call it the ping pong. They arrive now and they're getting a phone number or given a piece of paper, call this number, go here. They're going to CBSA, they're going to my constituency office, they're going to social services, they're going to Agape at times, and they're going to victim services. I've had dentists reach out where there's a program through Ontario Works for Dental. This is not a basic cleaning, or the severity of their dental needs is completely different. And so we've had the medical community from different angles to say, we're struggling to keep up with labor demands that we have naturally. To have this brought on with no notice, extra resources or coordination, or trying to help communicate better, the language barrier in itself, I don't need to say more, has been very, very complicated. So here we are 6-7 months into a process, and we're still, I believe, local officials and local voices are trying to speak up to get the most basic of services and coordination done. So the statement was frank. It was one of frustration, but I like to think it was effective in the sense that the public was aware of what was going on, aware of the frustration that was going on, and the need for the federal government to understand that any community that they have a processing center or a contact like this in, they need people on the ground here to be the pinwheels and coordinators between all the different services. Without that, I don't think anybody's being well served. And I would just wrap up to say that the more voices that I think speak out, that call for this to say it's not acceptable, something's got to give and something's got to change, I think will hopefully pressure IRCC to not go in the right direction, as opposed to cutting that local program that we had getting success, cutting local providers and going the other way. I think the city itself, I think the corporation of the city, the municipal government deserves better. And I think just the residents of the city and those that are arriving here, using that processing center for to have their story heard and have the opportunity to new life in this country, they deserve to have a better coordination and support to the chaos that we've been seeing the last couple of weeks. I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to take any questions or comments that council may have. And I think the more that we can speak up united on this, I'm hoping the more effective it can finally be to go in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Duncan. Prior to questions, can I get a motion to receive this report, please? Councillor McIntosh, Councillor Gardner. Questions? Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Hebert.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Eric, I read somewhere, understood that the contract is till September 1st. Is this a permanent center or is this a temporary situation?
So my understanding is that that's the contract dev center, from my understanding. Again, this is me doing my own our own research and trying to piece together. They've extended that contract several times. So yes, they have a contract to X date. The dev center did have that originally, and they went on multiple extensions from there. So it's permanent until it's not, right? I mean, they've not given an end date, and the bigger issue we face nationally when it comes to Roxham Road, I will not try to bring national politics to the local table here too much, but the whole idea of Roxham Road started several years ago, and under a U.S. administration, it was seen that many people felt the need to flee. What's unfortunately happened is now we're having record numbers accessing Roxham Road from around the world than ever before. So what was seen as a temporary bump, okay, we need a location, becomes a continual expansion of that contract or extension of that contract. Today, unless something changes in the Canada-US relationship and the safe country agreement that goes on, I don't think there's an end date to this, because it's now become, as you had referenced in your day job, we have the city of New York paying for bus tickets for people to go from New York City to Roxham Road to enter Canada now. This is becoming a permanent problem until something changes. So bottom line is, this contract's here, I think, until that major policy gets changed.
How many would be in Cornwall as of tonight?
I've not been given that number. My understanding would be there would be hundreds at this time. I don't have the breakdown and not provided that.
Okay. How long do they stay? Is there a plan? I know that you probably don't know this, but to process them, if they want to go to Toronto where they got relatives or whatever?
I was going to say, she's looking to the mayor, thankfully. I would probably defer to Melissa Morgan, that would have more of an insight. My quick understanding of local partners, it's very varied. It depends on the individual. It depends on the circumstance. I think the majority of those that have arrived and come through have departed to other parts of the country. There have been some that remain, but Melissa, through her team, they've had many interactions with those at the center.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to answer Councillor McIntosh's first question, and to elaborate on what MP Duncan has said, we've been advised by IRCC that they cannot, or perhaps will not, extend contracts beyond 3 months at a time. So the contract is renewed every 3 months, with, at this point, no no end in sight, but no confirmed date by IRCC as to how long this will be specifically within our community. We have a bi-weekly meeting with them tomorrow, and they will advise us how many rooms that they have secured between the Dev Center and the Ramada. It's our understanding that at this point in time, it's upwards of about 450 rooms between the two sites, and that could accommodate anywhere from a single individual or a family of 5. And many of those individuals will end up coming to seek services through the Human Services Department, and the varied length of stay can depend on how quickly they may move through the system, whether they want to remain in the Cornwall area or they want to move to a larger metropolis area like Toronto.
The New York Post reported 43,000 as of yesterday, 2 weeks ago in New York City, overwhelmed, and 19 different countries, so there is a language problem.
La Presse had done I tried to grab a copy of it today. I'm still trying to grab a physical copy, but one of my colleagues had shared they have some of the data of those that are crossing at Roxham Road, their nationalities, numbers, and some of the details. And Roxham Road is not the only, but a major flow through of traffic. But we're seeing a wide variety of nationalities that are arriving, that are for different reasons. If it's humanitarian from natural disaster or war or whatever it may be, it's increasingly in diversity. And I'll just say, Councillor, to that point, it's because now it's becoming our national system. If you were to apply for refugee or asylum process, we have serious backlogs. So an individual now thinking, if I applied legally through the system, I have to wait years on end in country X, Y, or Z. If I could arrive to the United States and then get up to Roxham Road, I can have a much better access to services and a change of life. I just don't think that's sustainable. There's an empathy, and we've got to do better, but it's creating another problem as opposed to a solution of the overall mobility that individuals.
A neighbor of mine told me he waited 2 years in a refugee camp. He's from Pakistan to get in here. Went through everything, and finally got his family into Canada. It took almost 2 years, and he was saying, we've got the express flight. I feel sorry for these folks. They're coming up through Mexico, Honduras, into the United States from Florida. Governor there flies them up to New York City and dumps them there, and then they move on to Canada. Okay, thanks, Gary.
Councillor Hubert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just some comments. I think I can speak on behalf of the nonprofit sector, saying that, we're already tapped out. We don't have enough resources to run our own programming, and it's been not just the lack of resources, but the confusion around everything. Who's doing what? Who's taking care of what? Everyone wants to step up, but who do we communicate with? It seems to be a mess, and it's not getting better because our local agencies are getting less involved, or we're losing the connection there because we're bringing in, or their IRC's bringing in outside agencies that don't have the local connection. So I think it's just getting messier. Not to say that we're not a welcoming community. I feel for these individuals. They're coming to Canada because we want to accept them. We want to give them a better life. If our community had the resources to do so, I would be the first one there to welcome them, but we cannot at this point, unless IRCC wanted to download a bunch of funds that go into translation, into human resources, then absolutely, sure, we'd be happy to. But I think there's a really negative impact on the sector, on human services, and so hoping to see some. There's a motion on the table today by one of our colleagues that I hope is successful, to see some further fund, or I don't think there's been any funding really to our local agencies, so hoping to see maybe an influx there.
Councillor Goodjoe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, Mr. MP. So the situation is very tricky. And honestly, I have been with a lot of people coming from who are coming through this program, and it's not easy for those people. And I think, as community, we have to react, because now we know what is going on right now, but we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We're going to face a lot of kind of matters, problems, because they have needs that they don't find now. So as community, we have to react, and that's why I was inspired, and here is a motion that I would like to introduce. I hope that we're going to accept it tonight, and I'm pretty sure that we know what is going on, we know all the problems we're facing, but we still have the opportunity to make the things better. And around a table with the government, with RCC, and some people of our community, I think we can define the problem and try to bring solutions. So it's something that should be faced right now, and we have to keep talk with the government, with our IRCC about this problem, and make them understand that we are welcoming people here in Cornwall. Cornwall is a great place to live. That is something that is not, it's not a discussion, but we need money and we need resources. We need help to support these people. And we have to speak together to solve this problem, because I can see other problems that we're going to face if we don't have enough courage to speak to RCC. I hope my colleague tonight are going to support this motion that I'm bringing around the table. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Further comments or questions? Councillor Gardner.
I just have one, your frustration about what's going on. I've received phone calls, and if it hadn't been for the freeholder and what they were carrying 2 weeks ago, when people were asking me what was happening, I had to say, I don't know. And as a councillor, I need to be able to answer these questions, which is why they have to communicate with us what's going on. Secondly, there's a committee that has run Take a Veteran to Dinner in the last 4 or 5 years, barring COVID. That committee has put together another Take a Veteran to Dinner at the Ramada Inn. Gone. Now, the months of meetings that we had to put this in place, we have to start all over and find another place to it's absolutely bloody frustrating. Thank you for what you're doing.
Any further comments? I'm sorry, it's on you don't have standing here, I'm sorry. Further comments from the table? Well, thank you, MP Duncan. I'll just say a few words as well. I want to thank you for your advocacy on this issue. Obviously, it's important to our community. And, you know, it's true. Cornwall is a very welcoming community, a very generous community, and we're willing to help everyone. But we also need a partner in the federal government. And as you pointed out, they've been lacking in that regard. So looking forward to continuing our work with you to bring them to the table so we can get the resources and support that we need. I'm going to call the vote on the motion to receive the report. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Appreciate your help with this. Enjoy the rest of your, I get to leave now. Sorry, you have to stay for the rest. Good to see you. I will come back again, Mr. Mayor, at your invitation to work on a date to discuss a few other federal municipal topics at that time.
Look forward to hosting you again.
Thank you.
Our second presentation this evening is from St. Lawrence College, and we have here Glenn Volbrick, President and CEO. And you're presenting by yourself?
Yep.
MP Duncan, I thought, said that he would stay for my presentation, so I thought.
He's not gone yet.
Oh, he's gone.
President Volbrick, welcome to council. We're happy to have you back. And Dean Wiggers, I see you sitting there as well, so welcome.
First of all, thank you, and thank you for allowing me to present to you today and about St. Lawrence College. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Glenn Volbrick, and I am the president and CEO of St. Lawrence. I understand I have about 10 minutes, so I'll use my time wisely. So, next slide, please. So, St. Lawrence College is situated on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee peoples, and may we always be grateful to live and learn on these lands. And Of course, we're also situated on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe on our campuses in Brockville and Kingston. And Indigenous ways of knowing and being is very important to our college as part of our STRAT plan. Next slide, please. I'm going to share information with you based on our strategic plan. So it's 4 strategic directions: our people, our program, our students, our communities. And then if folks have any questions, would be pleased to answer them. If we could go to the next slide and then the next slide. So again, you know, as president and CEO, I'm responsible for 3 campuses. We have a campus in Brockville and Kingston as well. We also have an employment center office in Ottawa, and we have 2 partner colleges, one in Toronto and one in Vancouver. Also, I'm on my 2nd year as the chair of Colleges Ontario, which represents all 24 colleges Ontario. So where I can tonight, I'll try to give you a provincial flavor as well. I'm joined by our campus dean, Dr. Richard Wiggers, who's behind me, and Richard's been with us for just before the pandemic, and Richard's done a great job at our Cornwall campus. And I was also very glad when Richard came on board, as I'm a lifelong Leaf fan, and apparently Richard is as well. So that makes 2 of us at
A couple of us.
Yeah,
I'm out of here.
Because the college officially turned 56, which is the last time the Leafs won the Cup 56 years ago. So. Next slide, please. So we do offer a number of different types of credentials, and the core of any academic institution is its program. So we offer over 100 programs, 34 in particular at the Cornwall campus. We offer 3- and 4-year degrees, grad certs, advanced diplomas, certificates, corporate training, apprenticeships, and micro-credentials. We offer 3 of our own degrees, so we have our own nursing degree. We also offer our own behavioral psych degree, and in partnership with Laurentian, a BBA. You know, I think when I first started this job, I'm in my 11th year now. I started lobbying for 3-year degrees, that colleges could have the opportunity to offer 3-year degrees. We offer a 3-year advanced diploma. Everywhere in the entire planet, 3 years of study gives you the credential of a degree. Very pleased to say that just this past year, provincial government gave us the opportunity to offer 3-year degrees. So, you know, working with Richard and the team, we'll be offering a lot more 3-year degrees for our local community. You know, I've been here for a number of years, and I've seen the quest for a university come to Cornwall and those types of things. And I would argue, and I say this with all due respect, you have a local university. It's called St. Lawrence College. And our programming, I truly believe, is second to none, and we're able to offer all the different types of credentials that our students are looking for. Next slide, please. These are our top 5 programs in Cornwall. You can see large number of health sciences students in our nursing degree program, as well as practical nursing, and then social services worker, paramedic, and business. And what's unique about this too, and what's unique about our campus, is that over 80% of our students come from the local area, and then the other roughly about 69% come from directly within the local area. Another 11% or so come within a 30-minute drive. So 80% are quite local, and this is different than our other communities. In Brockville, it's about 65-70%. In Kingston, it's about 50%. So we're very proud of what we're able to do in Cornwall. I'm very proud that we're able to provide higher education for the local community. Next slide, please. In terms of enrollment, I'm just going to give you a brief overview about the system enrollment, and then a little closer home of what it looks like at SLC, and then what it looks like at the Cornwall campus. So if we go to the next slide. If we could go to the next slide, sorry. Yep. The big story on this is international enrollment. I think if you've been following higher education, international enrollment is big in Ontario and throughout Canada. you can see that the percentage of growth for the last 5 years, our college alone has grown 300% in the last 5 years. For the very first time in college history, over 50% of first-year students across the province will be from abroad. And overall now we're about 46%. And this trend is continuing. If you look at the next slide, this shows our international enrollment as a percentage of our total enrollment. We're at just over 50%. That includes our private partners. If we look a little closer in terms of what's on campus, we're closer to 38 to 40%. But you can see some of those numbers there in terms of percentage of total enrollment. It's quite substantial and quite high. If we go to the next slide. So in terms of our SLC enrollment, you can see we're about 11,000, just over 11,000 students. That's about as high as we've ever been, quite frankly. You can see in terms of on-campus enrollment, we're about 6,500 students in Cornwall, about 1,105, and of those, we have 447 come from abroad. Those private partners are international schools for us. Alpha is located in Toronto, and Canadian College is in BC, and they're close to 5,000 students as well. Next slide, please. So the Cornwall campus enrollment, again, 80% of our enrollment is either in our degree programs or in our two-year diploma. We also have, various amounts in terms of our certificates and micro-credentials and grad certs. The graduate certificates are becoming very popular. Those are available to students that have either a college diploma or a university degree. So they're usually 8 months to a year programs that offer a work integrated learning placement as well. So we actually, it's one of our highest enrollments in terms of attracting university grads. We get a lot of arts and sci grads coming back for an advanced diploma in HR or marketing or accounting, that type of thing. Next slide. In terms of supporting our students, we have now 3 health centers. We have one in Kingston, one in Brockville, and one in Cornwall. Very pleased to say that we have 2 local doctors from Cornwall that are taking on the Brockville and Cornwall health centers, and they're going to be community health centers. So not only servicing our students, but servicing the community. And every community is struggling for doctors, and this will be, I think, a great benefit to our local community in Cornwall. In terms of a housing coordinator, we realize with all of our international students that we need housing, and we have very little resident space on campus, and this is happening in all of our communities. So we have brought on a housing coordinator to try to help work with our local communities to find housing for our students. The integrated mental health strategy, we're committing significant resources to this and making sure that we have mental health supports for our students. This is an area of our college that has grown substantially. I think 10 years ago we might have had 5 counselors. That department now has about 25 counselors. And it continues not only at our college but through society. The need for mental health supports is there. Next slide, please. So that's the previous slide that I wanted to stop on for 1 second. It's just a neat little thing on, this is WeTron. I think this was an announcement in the fall. WeTron is a world leader in logistics and design, and they do the Loblaws Logistics Center, and they've partnered with us and made a substantial donation to the college and hire a lot of our grads. And those grads are actually from out of town and have come into the local community and work, live, and play in the city of Cornwall. Next slide. Community connections, we're always trying to reach out to our community, and I know, and Richard, Dr. Wiggers behind me was the brainchild behind the Community Connections series, and we've hosted 2, one in November and one in January, and Thank you, Mayor, for joining, and I know some councillors around the table have joined as well, so I want to thank you for that support. And we had two, one on new Canadians and new folks to our community, and then another one on engaging youth in local politics, and Senator Clement was the featured speaker for that. Next slide, please. One of the tests sometimes in terms of does your community value your institution is community philanthropy, and this council a number of years ago led the way with $1 million donation a number of years ago, and we have been very, very fortunate to receive significant support from the local philanthropy. Just recently, we've had major gifts from the Keneb Family Foundation, New Med Canada, and an anonymous donor that have helped really to create these simulation labs, bring our paramedic labs up to world-class standards, and our nursing lab. And from when you run a college and you have folks donate their time and donate their resources to your college, you're doing something right, because they could put their money anywhere, and they've chosen to put it in St. Lawrence and help our students and help our community. And then next slide, please. So really, that's it. I do want to say, not only from a philanthropic support, want to thank this council and thank the community of Cornwall, local businesses. They hire our grads, they take our grads on in placement. The local healthcare system supports our grads, and quite frankly, the community always reaches out to the college, and hopefully you feel that we're reaching out back to you as well. So that's my presentation. Be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. Before we go to questions, motion to receive, please. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Ngunjo, questions? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. Quite a while ago, we brought the paramedics program into the college, and the nursing program was almost gone. So I'm glad to see you have increased the number of students, when about 10 or 12 years ago, there was a psychologist, book writer that came in and said, nah, the college in Cornwall, you're gonna reduction of students left and right. That didn't happen, and I'm glad. I'm glad that I taught at the college retail and in the marketing, and at the time I can remember I had 8 Chinese students who all had 95, 98%. I couldn't believe the way they worked. I'm really happy that this college is doing what it's doing now, growing and growing and growing. My only issue is the university course that I tried to bring to Cornwall, the French university, but you kind of covered that. Thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ngunjo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's very, very important to have high school like Saint Laurent in our community. It's something very powerful that we need. And I'm convinced that education is something that we need to reinforce every time to be competitive, because the world is going very fast. Technologies and knowledge are sciences are going very fast. So we have to stay in touch with all those new things coming out. So I would like to it's a few questions that I have for you, please. I'm wondering if you are open to establish connection with other universities, for example, like Toronto or Ottawa universities. Are you working in these because we need to go further in terms of knowledge?
No, great question. And we have a number of articulation agreements with a number of universities and a number of colleges, both in Ontario and both abroad. The challenge I quite frankly have sometimes with our universities is not giving our students the credit that they deserve for the coursework that they took. So by what I mean by that, if they took a 3-year diploma and then only getting credit for 1 year, that's an injustice, and it's not fair to the student. So when we do articulation agreements, we try to partner with schools that will recognize the valuable work that our students have done. And it's one of the reasons why we lobbied hard to bring in the 3-year degree, because we already offer 3-year advanced diplomas, and you know, as I said, that everywhere in the entire planet, a 3-year advanced diploma is called a degree, and because our students have done the work and they deserve it. So you know, that's why we lobbied for that. But absolutely, where possible, we articulate with other universities, other institutions, particularly if students want to continue on. We have a lot of nursing students that would like to continue on a professional basis in terms of getting their master's and PhD, and then we have other nursing students that want to go right in and practice. So we try to accommodate everyone. So.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Can I?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I would like thank you very much for your answer.
Welcome.
But I would like to know if, because you know, in my mind I have like a triangle: knowledge, politics, and companies. So it's how it works. Knowledge, you bring expertise, and politicians decide for the community, and companies hire those who are who comes from the high school. So it's something that is very, it's how it works. So I was wondering if you had some discussion with companies, with employers in our community to define their needs and to adapt your programs to their need, because companies are looking some profiles, and if we don't have those profiles here in our community, we're going to lose those companies coming from outside. So did you, and I know the city, for example, is trying to hire people, so maybe we should think about administration program, something like that. So are you thinking about this kind of
So thank you for that question. So one of the mandates of the college system is to provide graduates that are career ready, work ready, and part of that mandate is to ensure that we're connected with the labor market. So every program that we have, all 100 have what's called a program advisory committee. Every program advisory committee is made up of business leaders within the sector. If it's health, they're from the health sector. If it's manufacturing, they're from the manufacturing center, to ensure that our program curriculum is meeting what they need, right? So that we're producing graduates that can come out and work right away. Having said that, there's also work that we do with individual employers that may need certain specific type of students. We may need to tweak the curriculum to be able to get the kind of student that the kind of graduate that they're looking for. But in essence, that's part of the DNA of colleges, is working with employers. It's right in our vision statement that we'll, if you come to college, you're going to get a job, and you're going to get a job because you have the skills you need to put into play from day one. 93% of our programs have what's called a integrated work opportunity, which means they have work experience in order to pass that particular course. So that's what we do.
Thank you. I have a last one. Yes, as you know, I'm in contact with a lot of. We were talking about newcomers in our community. We have a lot of newcomers, and I know a little bit about their need. And I'm going to say it in French. Je sais qu'ils ont besoin des programmes en français. Est-ce que vous pensez à cela?
I don't speak French.
So I say I know that they need French program. And what about French program? Are you thinking about that?
So it's, Richard and I were just talking about that before. So in Ontario, St. Lawrence College used to be a bilingual college. Now, when the province changed the mandate for colleges, Boreal in Sudbury and La Cité in Ottawa have responsibility for French language college curriculum. So we actually can't deliver a French language program because La Cité would. However, just talking to my colleague at La Cité today and talking to Richard just before we got here, and we're looking at ways in which we can deliver bilingual programs here. So we work with La Cité. It'd be a partnership, so technically we're doing exactly what the province has asked of us, and we know, I think, what is it, 40% of Cornwall is bilingual. So we know there's a market here. It's just making sure we get the right program to appeal to as many students as possible. But yeah, so hopefully I've answered your question.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Good.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Glenn, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Having St. Lawrence College in our community is such a value add to our community. We see how it brings people here and it keeps people here. My own partner came from Whitby and took the video game design program, and he never left, so thank you. One of the aspects that I'm so eager to see is the development of the degree programs and the enhancement of that, because that is what unfortunately causes a lot of people to leave our community. I know over the course of the campaign, and the mayor can attest to this, we had some, not all recent immigrants, but a lot of immigrant families expressing concerns over the fact that they had put so much work into relocating into our community and really, started to grow their families and their careers. And as their children, grew from young children to then college, university age kids, that they were having to leave in order to obtain the certification that they needed to work in the industries that they wanted to work in. So, definitely our nursing program's awesome. We have so many people who go through there, and it's a really, it's a great career in terms of, what is the word, in terms of actual salary expectation, which is something that is important and it can't be overlooked at all. Definitely we have a need, not just in our community, but everywhere, for more medical staff. And so I'm excited to hear about the talks that are happening with other universities and colleges in terms of kind of bringing programs here that we don't already have. And definitely I support whatever we can do to bring more higher education into our community, because I think it is so important, and I think that's really what's going to bring Cornwall to the next level, is everything we can do to support that. I'm on board for.
Yeah, no, it's and thank you for that. It's important for us, and it's part of our academic plan to develop our new 3-year business degree, probably one in business, one in technology, one in every one of the major disciplines, because as I showed you before, the stats in Cornwall in particular, most of our students come from the local area, and by far the most significant piece of higher ed to get a degree is living accommodations. Right, that's by far the biggest expense. So if we can provide that locally, they won't have to go anywhere else. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Lots of good things happening, which is nice to see. I'm looking at, as enrollment is going up at all of your campuses, I'm sure you're seeing the same struggles most municipalities are seeing in housing your students and trying to figure all that out. You do have a lot of property at this one. I was just wondering if there's been any consideration to maybe possibly building a residence.
So we have one residence on campus, about 40. We have looked into building additional residences. We'd have to partner with someone as a college. If we it's in our bylaws that in order to build a residence, it'd have to be self-sustaining, and it's very challenging for us to build a residence to make it self-sustaining, quite frankly. So we'd be willing to talk to anybody that would, that's looking at building a residence if it works for them and if it works for us and it works for our students. For sure, we'd be interested.
Okay, I've had very high-level conversations with my brother-in-law, who's it's kind of getting more involved in building these types of things. And we had a conversation just this morning about different areas where they could do apartments. And when I'm looking at your stuff, I'm thinking, man, that might be an opportunity for some of the people he's working with to come and see you, because it's not like a unit on your college, just say, 50 units. It's not like that would probably be taken up pretty quickly. So the self-sustaining thing, I think, will probably take care of itself. So I'm just glad that you're at least having the conversation.
Oh, no, for sure. And it's college residences are unique because the price point is different. And so, you have to factor all that in, but absolutely, we'd be looking at that.
Councillor Dupel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I was really interested in reading through the presentation and the agenda, and excited that it was coming to council, because I think that a lot of good things are coming out of St. Lawrence College, and I really do think that St. Lawrence College is a gem in our community. I know that during my day job, I get to, welcome lots of social service workers into our workforce that are graduating from St. Lawrence College, and we retain and hire a lot of people out of St. Lawrence College graduate program. And it's when you get to meet with them and orientate them, and you see that the course is well built, and that they've, the instructors have done a great job delivering a course such as that. So, but congratulations on all the good that you do in our community, and thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Hubert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. SLC grad. I took off after high school. I did 1 year of college, and I thought, no, I need to go to university. It's what they teach us, go to university. But I had such a great experience at my first year of college that university was awful, so I didn't quite make it through the first year, and came back and ended up finishing my diploma at St. Lawrence College, Cornwall campus. So proud graduate, and really enjoyed my experience and how much the teachers work around the students and their needs. And so more recently, my experience with the college is, again, with some of these teachers and how they go above and beyond to use their students as a tool for community engagement. And so in multiple initiatives that we've run in my day job, we've had SLC students come and either organize parts of events or contribute, and instead of learning about concepts in a classroom, it's more about actually getting into the community and learning about what's going on. And so I've worked with several of the teachers there, and they've been great. I gave a presentation to one of your classes last week and got some feedback as a focus group. Nice. So always encouraged in how much they're getting engaged in the community, because I think that's real learning, right? We can read everything we want out of a book, but let's actually put some hands-on learning experience, and I appreciated that when I was there, and I see it's only getting better. And I know we talk about it a lot. I sit on the SSW PAC, so there's great things to come, I hope, from what I'm hearing there as well. So I'm very proud of our community college, and happy to see that there's so many great things happening.
Oh, great, thank you. And the heart of any institution, as you know, is your faculty. Right. And your support. It takes a community to deliver that, but really, proud of our faculty. They come from the various sectors that they teach in, and you're absolutely right. That's in the college DNA, right? Is the applied learning aspect of it. So.
And we really, those of us who work in this sector, really appreciate the placement opportunities. I have a former placement student in the audience who was an excellent addition to our team for the semester that she was with us. So. Nice. Continuously contributing to the community's needs.
Thank you.
Councillor Hollingsworth and Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one question, maybe two. So you were mentioning how your international students are increasing. Does that mean that spots to Canadian kids are being taken up by international kids?
No, it doesn't. In fact, college domestic enrollment is shrinking, has shrunk in college. I think this past year, the Ontario domestic enrollment shrunk by 6 or 7% at colleges. we were not as much. But no, that does not mean that they're taking spots from a domestic
It's
student.
a bit of a regrettable trend, eh? Do we know why that's taking place?
Well, it's, so there's a couple things. One is demographics, so we, you know, and the region is not growing in terms
No.
of Eastern Ontario. I think we, you know, we all understand that piece. But the other piece as well is that when there are lots of jobs available, and we are in a situation right now where there are lots of jobs available, quite often college enrollments will decline during that period. It's been like that since, you know, for 56 years. We find an ebb and flow like that. You know, having said that, that doesn't stop our domestic recruitment team from trying new things in terms of attracting students. The other thing that's changed as well is 10 years ago, 70% of our students came directly from high school. Today, that number's flipped, and 30% are coming from high school, 70% are coming from and they're not 30 years old or anything. They're 21, 22, but they've spent 2 or 3 years. Some have tried universities, some are in the workforce, that type of thing. So, you know, that's what we're seeing right now.
Just specifically, what kind of 3-year degree programs, and I don't know if you specifically, do you have 3-year degree programs in mind that you would like to kind of expand locally? I mean, that's with the local council.
No,
so that's
absolutely.
our-
So, you know, again, that's part of our academic plan for this coming year, and we'd like to develop 3-year degrees in some of the major disciplines. So I would say in business, in technology, we'll have one that deals in you know, public service, social service. We already have nursing. So try to get, you know, 2 or 3, perhaps 4 degrees that would appeal to a broad student base.
Just an FYI, I taught at St. Lawrence College in 1989, about 20 billion years ago. It was an excellent experience
34
then.
years ago.
It's nice to see it's still a key part of our community. Keep
Great.
up the good work.
Thank you.
Councillor McIntosh.
Yeah, no question, number of foreign students increasing. My daughter does post-grad work in Toronto. Should have, or one lecture class, half of them are from China. And how do you go about recruiting foreign students?
So a number of ways. We deal through an agent network, and so we deal with many agents throughout the world. We also have country offices in over 12 different countries as well that we use as a base to recruit. We also have those 2 private colleges that you saw, one in Toronto and one in Vancouver, that we use to recruit. So it's a very sophisticated agent network.
I'm
That's
just
been
wondering why St. Lawrence College?
Why not?
No, but if I'm living in China, St. Lawrence College means nothing to me, so I've got to rely on.
You know, the world is a very small place. And you develop a reputation very, very quickly. So once you get a reputation for, you might have 10, 20 students had a positive experience at the college. They tell 10, 20. It really is amazing how small the world can be at different times. And with social media, as you know, if you're not doing things right, everyone knows.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing things right, everyone knows. And so, you know, I think that's part of it. The other piece is as well, and all Ontario colleges do this, we sell Canada as well, right? And Canada is a very popular education destination, and why wouldn't it be? It's an amazing country, and we live in an amazing province, and we live in an amazing community. So, you know, we have a lot going for us, and that appeals to our students. So, good.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see you have an Indigenous Center,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about that.
So Indigenous ways of knowing and being is a part of our strategic plan. Actually, it's one of our major pillars. We have 3 Indigenous centers, one on each campus. We also have an Indigenous knowledge keeper. We have a whole Indigenous unit looking at curriculum and support services as well. I got a picture while I was sitting outside. We're installing our first teepee as well, and it's been a real enriching journey for all of us and for our students. So it's something we're listening, we're learning, and making mistakes along the way, I'm sure, but to make some progress.
Final comments? Well, President Vollerbrecht, thank you very much again for your presentation. I just want to reiterate what you heard around the table. We value SLC as a partner in our community. We look forward to continuing our partnership with you. And I'll just add, go Leafs, go.
Great. Yeah, go Leafs, go. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to receive the presentation? Or, sorry, correction. I'm calling the vote on the motion to receive the presentation. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
But I don't want to miss the presentation. Well, I'll go after the presentation. This is really long. Sure, I just.
Just one moment, please.
I'm gonna go.
Oh, Danny.
Why not?
While we're waiting, who's that gentleman besides Tim?
Our new deputy chief,
His name?
Addison Pelkey.
Welcome. I think my wife
He's
worked
doing
with
this by
you.
himself.
Or your mother.
Thank you.
Oh, she's just.
Yeah.
That's why I really want these. Come explain it.
It's a community risk assessment, and we have Chief Stevenson with us, and we have the presenter on Teams.
All right, Chief, you want to kick us off here, please?
Thank you, Mayor Towndale, members of council. It's a pleasure to be here presenting to you tonight. I would like to acknowledge my team with me tonight as well, Deputy Chief Addison Pelkey, who has recently joined our fire service, and in the deputy chief role. Addison has been with us for about 12 years in the suppression and training divisions. Beside Addison is Deputy Chief Leighton Woods. So tonight we're bringing forward to you, I will suggest, step one of a two-step process, and that step one is a community risk assessment. And I'm sure many of you, if you weren't familiar, what is a community risk assessment? And really, in basic, very basic generic terms, it's the process of identifying, analyzing, evaluating, and prioritizing risks to the public safety to inform decisions about the provision of fire protection services. And that's really what we've done through this process, is to try to identify the risks within the city of Cornwall. Last year in October, we procured this community risk assessment, and Pomax Consulting Group was the successful firm to receive this award. With us tonight is John Hambadis. John is a senior partner with the firm. Pomax Consulting is a public safety group of experts for police, fire, paramedic services, and all levels of government. They were certainly a joy to work with. They understood what needed to be done, and together over the last number of months, we've worked together to produce the report that's before you. You'll note in my report I provided 4 recommendations that we'll look at later, and try to provide you with a brief background of what a community risk assessment is, the legislation that requires it, and kind of what our expectations were walking through this process. So at this time, I will turn it over to John to provide a brief presentation to council. There will be an opportunity at the end for questions. John, just for your knowledge, you can't see us, but we can see you, and you're looking extravagant tonight. So we welcome you, and I hope you can hear us. And Madam Clerk, I don't know if your mic's muted. If
It's not reacting.
No, you don't have a mic. It says no mic, no camera. Oh no.
It's me.
I will, one moment, please.
Chief, you did assure me it was going to work.
I was assured.
It's because your mic is off.
At the top.
Turn your mic on.
I don't. I
No
don't.
microphone. Oh, cripes.
Oh, where's the owl?
Whoa, he looks familiar.
At least you're not upside down, so that's good.
I had a Zoom down last week.
Upside down.
John, if you can hear me.
I was hosting first thing Monday morning, hosting a meeting, and I'm told I need to update my Zoom, but no link to where to update. Oh my God, I'm panicking. So I finally found a way to do that. But, oh my God, like total panic attack. I had, it was for work, but I pulled this up and I was trying to log in through here and have my, it was just nuts. John, please start your presentation.
For this, but could I get a motion to defer from council, please? Councilor McDonald, Councilor Dupel, all in favor of the deferral?
Sure.
Carried, thank you. We look forward to having this presentation at a future meeting.
Chief, do you have contact with our presenter? Thank you.
Moving on, delegations,
We have none, Mr. Mayor.
consent reports.
Big Bend Ski Center, with a recommendation that council declare the Big Bend Ski Center fundraiser an event of municipal significance. Power Dam Traffic, that council request administration to prepare a report. No Mo May 2023, with the following recommendations: that council receive this report for information purposes, and that council give direction to administration to waive Section 3 of the Yard Maintenance Bylaw 213-212 as amended from May 1st to May 31st, 2023 inclusively. Chief Administrative Officer Recruitment, with the recommendation that council award a contract for recruiting services for the position of CAO to Odgers Branston from Ottawa at a total bid price of $43,000, excluding HST. RFP terms of reference, 23 P05 Pharmaceutical Services for the Glen-Stordun Lodge, with the recommendation that council receive this report. 2022 Sustainability Year in Review, with the recommendation that council receive this report for information purposes.
Motion? Counselor Good, Counselor Dupel. All in favor? Carried, thank you. You're opposed? Opposed? Okay.
Let me get my hand up.
We have two resolutions on the agenda. The first one is Council Resolution 2023-03. Whereas as a COVID pandemic measure, municipalities were allowed to conduct their business and meetings through electronic means. And whereas the current procedural bylaw for the City of Cornwall does not allow for participation by way of electronics at council or committee meetings. And whereas advancements in the technology behind electronic meetings now makes it a common practice for meetings at all levels of government as well as in the business world. And whereas the Ontario Municipal Act now allows for electronic participation for in-camera and public meetings of a municipality. Now therefore be it resolved that, while it is not the intent of this motion to eliminate the physical presence of members at council and committee meetings, the purpose of the motion is to amend the procedural bylaw to allow members who, on occasion, cannot physically attend and will have the option of participating electronically. This resolution was proposed by Councillor Denise Sabourin and seconded by Councillor Claude McIntosh.
Councillor Sabre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to my colleagues around the table, I think it's a motion of accommodation. At the same time, it's a step towards modernization. Hard to believe that we can have electronic meetings with various committees and we can conduct business throughout. I don't see any reason as to why we can't move that to the council meetings and participation.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
Yeah, I'm gonna vote against it, Your Worship. I have a couple of problems. First of all, I think that attending is kind of part of the job. We're expected, for some jobs out there, you have to physically be there to be doing the job, and doing it from home. If you talk to most people in the education business, they'll tell you, yeah, it was better than nothing, but it really wasn't ideal. And I kind of on the same mindset with it in terms of meetings. The second problem I have with the motion says on occasion. Well, how many times is on occasion? How many times does a councillor get to say, well, I'm not gonna come tonight and I'll just go online? So the fact that it's not really definitive, I have a problem with that. Thirdly, as we've just watched like 2 seconds ago, tech is painfully unreliable from time to time, and having spent 2 years trying to juggle it all, I can assure you, when you need it to work, that's when it doesn't. So, my point is this: if we have a controversial issue that we are discussing that is of grave importance to the community, and we have somebody online or a couple people online, and they don't hear what we're saying, and we don't hear what they're saying, and somehow they still get a vote, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. I don't think that's good practice. And finally, I don't care what anyone tells me, you cannot be as engaged at home as you are in real time. Now, people who want to spin it the right way will tell you, oh yeah, wrong. I don't believe that. Don't, not for 1 second. Therefore, I will not support this motion as it is written currently. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Good.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I appreciate the very colorful concerns that my colleague has highlighted here, and obviously we did just experience, technical difficulties. I do support the essence of this motion, and I think that it is a nice thing to be able to make not a nice thing. I think that in our current day and age, it is valuable to be able to make such an accommodation in situations that warrant it. I would propose a slight changing to the actual action in this motion. And if I can read that and take it as you will. Therefore be it resolved that while physical presence is the normal expectations at council meetings, where a member of council is unable to attend in person, they will be able to obtain approval upon request to the mayor and clerk for electronic participation. I would say that given the concerns that my colleague presented here, quorum shall be determined by those attending in person. Electronic participation shall not be considered as part of quorum. And the reason why I express that piece of it is naturally, if we are having technical difficulties, that we won't start a meeting and then suddenly not have quorum in the middle of a meeting. That would be incredibly problematic. I think we are in a position that we can make it work. It certainly isn't ideal, and there absolutely are limitations around electronic participation. However, I think that there might be circumstances that would come up that would warrant this kind of participation in the meetings. And I do agree that, I see issue with the occasional, because it's vague and I don't like that. However, I think it should be circumstantially based. So if it's either a medical issue and you need to be, whether it's a personal medical issue or you're attending to a partner, spouse, family member, whatever it might be, if you're away at a conference but you're not doing anything at night and you would like to otherwise participate, I don't see why that shouldn't be allowed. So I do support this motion. I think it brings value to the way that we work, and I think it's part of moving in the modern world, is that we need to accept the technologies. Whether they're perfect right now at this instant or not is obviously up for debate. Well, it's not up for debate, they're not perfect. But I think we're moving in a direction where they can be acceptable in order to provide the input and insight that a councillor might need to effectively participate in a meeting. Thank you.
So Councillor Good, are you proposing an amendment to the motion?
I am proposing an amendment, yes.
Is there a seconder for the amendment?
Can we get the amendment read?
Sure.
You don't know what the
No.
amendment actually says?
I could read it from Councillor Good's paper.
What exactly are we amending?
Therefore, just the last paragraph, because that's really the part that matters. Now therefore be it resolved that while physical presence is the normal expectation at council meetings, where a member of council is unable to attend in person, they will be able to obtain approval upon request to the mayor and clerk for electronic participation. Quorum shall be determined by those attending in person. Electronic participation shall not be considered as part of quorum. That's my suggestion.
Is there a seconder for the amendment? Last one-third time, the last time. There's a seconder?
I'll second that just for the sake of having the conversation.
Okay, so now we are debating the amendment to the motion. Councillor Bennett.
So, I appreciate that. It makes a little bit more sense, it's a little more clear. But what I would like to see clear is the reasons that you could participate. So, you're sick, obviously that's a good one. You're representing the city at a conference and you can't make it, you can join in. I just would like to see more, a little bit more, I don't know, more clarity as to what constitutes a reason to be joining virtually. Just leaving it up to the mayor and clerk is fine if we have rules in place. So I can appreciate that amendment. I think it kind of makes it a little bit more clear. But I would like to see a little bit more clarity to it. So while I seconded the motion of the conversation, I'd like to hear what my colleagues think about, what rules would be in place as to what would allow us to join virtually. And maybe this is something we should send to administration for a report on, see what other communities are doing, if they're doing it, how are they doing it. Because I'm not necessarily against the motion, but I do want a little bit more clarity.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm probably still not a fan. The biggest issue, curiously enough, is two things. First of all, I'm more inclined to see some kind of number. How many times could a counselor do this? The other problem, 1 meeting, 10 meetings, 20 meetings, how does that work? The other issue I have is that, and this is, I guess, probably a philosophical spin, is that I think the ultimate authority in terms of the corporation are 6 votes around the council table. Majority of council now, I say 6 because we're 11. If we were 8, then I guess what, 5, whatever it is. And I don't think that the mayor and the clerk, no disrespect to mayor and clerk on this one, but I don't think that I want the mayor and clerk deciding who gets to join in and who doesn't. I would kind of prefer to see a majority of council deciding, because the majority of council are ultimately the decision-making authority around the council table. That being said, I don't think that that's a practical solution. We're gonna have a vote before every meeting to determine who's in and who's not. So, because I don't see how it could practically work, I get the mayor clerk option is quick and expedient, but that takes away the authority of council, and I kind of have a problem with that. So I don't know how it can work. Maybe a report in terms of some possible options, but it seems like we're trying to sort of piece it together on the fly. And that being said, I probably won't support the amendment either, Your Worship. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald and Councillor Sabri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the original motion, which I support, is clear. If you look down at the the third last line, the last word, it's cannot. There's no question here or implication that a person can choose not to attend. This is if one cannot attend. That's really clear. And so if a person cannot attend, obviously, they would inform the clerk, as they always do, if they're going to be absent. I mean, you know ahead of time if one of us can't be here, you know, and you usually read that out with the attendance. You say, you know, so-and-so sends regrets. So the difference, I think, would be that we would tell you that we would like to, we absolutely cannot attend in person, but I would like to attend virtually, and then I think that's sufficient. But try to phone 2 high-profile people and get them on the line, forget it. Like, I think the clerk is absolutely at our disposal for something like this, you know, to register our intent to attend sort of thing. So hopefully informing the clerk that we need access to attend electronically. That's an actual necessity. We would have to so inform her so that she can have the technology ready to receive our input. But I don't think there's any indication here that there's a frivolous desire, well, I'm comfortable at home, my chair is better, it's too cold to go out. This is, I mean, this is not an issue here. This is if you cannot attend. So you broke your leg and you're not yet very handy with the crutches, you can claim you cannot attend, and that sort of thing. Or if you're in another city, a conference, as Councillor Good said, absolutely, it'd be wonderful to be able to tune in the evening when you're not at your conference. You can do the council meeting. So that's what I think.
Thank you. Councillor Sabri.
Well, I want to thank Councillor McDonald for basically pointing out the cannot, because that was one of the things that I was going to raise. It's definitive. If you cannot attend, you have an option. On occasion, well, I can't say, like, you know, figuratively how many times a person may or may not use this, but it's not to be a constant practice. It's because they cannot attend. So that, you know, plays into the rationale behind the objective of the motion, giving them an option to be able to attend. I respect your proposed amendment, Councillor Good, but at the same time, quorum is quorum. If you're a member of council and if you have the option of attending by electronic means, you're in attendance. Your face might be on a screen or something like that, but you're in attendance, you're participating, you're voting, you are part of the quorum process for the entire meeting. and that stuff. That's where I draw the line with regards to your motion and why I wouldn't be able to support your motion and that stuff. The resolution as it stands right now, I think is fairly clear. I appreciate Councillor Hollingsworth's example of what happened here a few minutes ago, and I appreciate the past practice. But I've also participated on a daily basis almost with tribunals and other forms of adjudication where we go to electronic meetings, and it works, and it works well. And I take it a step further with regards to the confidentiality of in-camera meetings being included, because there are mechanisms that are followed at tribunals, such as a camera sweep of the room. If you question whether your meeting is being participated in, and there might be other people sitting in on an in-camera portion that shouldn't be there, well, there's a mechanism there as well. And that's, plus, I put it to the integrity of each and every councillor to always remember the responsibility that we've taken when we became councillors, that we respect the difference between in camera and in public and that stuff. So for a whole host of reasons, I believe that the motion as it stands is valid, and it is worthy of the consideration and support.
Thank you. Councillor McIntosh.
Yeah, I think the breakdown here is a cannot oppose to. I just don't feel like coming down to City Hall tonight because it's too cold. The car won't start. You know, courts have been using this for, and they still use it for bail hearings and whatever else. One of the committees I sat on last time, the Portlands Committee, quite often we used it for the folks from Akwesasne who were coming from St. Regis Village, say, or the Snai. The weather wasn't very good. They would go on, and we never had a problem. That was a bad example tonight, but that does not. I think everybody around this table wants to be here. They don't want to be in a Zoom meeting. I certainly couldn't. You know, I was so glad when Zoom was done, but there could be occasions, and I think it's not going to be used very often. There are times when somebody mentioned at a conference, or somebody is just not feeling up to par medically, and they'll do it from home. And if they disconnect, fine, they're not at the meeting. You know, we carry on. But I don't think there's going to be a wholesale rush to sit at home and do it on Zoom. I think most of us here, I know Dean had some bad experiences on Zoom. He came in upside down one night.
That was special.
But I think most of us want to be here, and yeah, if we can, and we're not going to use Zoom if we can. Library used it for quite a while, Zoom meetings for our library board meetings. We had it wasn't even Zoom, it was on the phone. Somebody worked in Montreal, couldn't get to the meeting, so I think we're making something out of nothing here, saying, you know, we're going to have all these problems. I bet we don't use more than 3 or 4 times in the whole term of this council.
Councillor Huber, my apologies.
I'm just wondering, are we still debating the amendment, or can I go back to just debating the, like, where are we at?
We're on the amendment. I had you on my speakers list for the main motion.
Okay, well, it sounds like we're also debating the main motion, so I will wait to speak to the main motion. I don't want to speak to the amendment.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the only issue I had, and it's been covered by Councillor Sabare, was the in-camera meetings being secure. I mean, there has to be a system in place that if you're not here, if you're on Zoom, I don't know if there's a way to block anybody else from trying to get in. I'm not that much of a techie, so maybe somebody has an answer to that. But you kind of covered it. My question was really in-camera meetings, and that bothers me. Yep. To make sure they're secure.
Councillor Dupel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I won't support the amendment. I want to echo Councillor McDonald's comments, and I think that, you know, cannot speaks clearly, and that's what I thought when I had read the motion. So I will not, and I know that from past experience of not being able to attend the council meeting and have to send my regrets, I no sooner send an email to the clerk, and the clerk is responding immediately. So and I know that my regrets are going to be mentioned at the meeting, so I'm happy to vote again when we come back to the main motion.
Further comments on the amendment? Councillor Good, do you want to wrap up?
Sure, I think, the amendment was a suggestion, trying to kind of tweak it a little bit, but if the rest of council feels that, as originally presented, that it satisfies the intent, then I'm totally fine to just drop that amendment, if that's even a possibility.
I think if the seconder agrees. Yeah. Okay. Amendment is dropped. We're back to the main motion. Councillor Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I realized my mic was very far away, sorry. So for my day job, I love virtual meetings, and I don't love this world where we're going back to normal and I'm having to leave the house in real pants, 5 days a week. And so I love virtual meetings. I love the fact that I can be super productive working from home, and but I find it's a bit different for council. So I'm leaning towards not supporting this motion, because I'm hearing the need for this is when a councillor cannot attend. So in my experience, I cannot attend when I have an illness, when I have a migraine. Last council meeting, I was not here. I was at home with a migraine. If we had this motion passed today, I would feel the pressure of still attending. If I had the option to attend from home and I didn't because I was at home not well, in bed in a dark room, and I feel like I might be criticized if I would not attend regardless. So I feel like it puts us in a position that if we can't be here, we still have to be here. If we happen to have scheduled a vacation with family, which I don't do, but some of you do, and you're in Florida, will you log in when you're supposed to be on vacation? At the end of the day, this is a job for us, and sometimes we can call in sick, and sometimes we can take vacation time to be with family. And if you're at a conference, maybe you want to be at the sessions, maybe you want to be networking. So I feel like it will put expectations on us to be present, even though we can't necessarily be present. I see this for myself. Only time I'm really missing is when I have an illness, and I'm not here because I can't. And can't means online or in person. So I worry that I'll have the expectation to be zooming in when I'm just really not well and not able to participate. So I would support this if it was in the case where none of us could be participating. So massive snowstorm, but we still want to have a Zoom meeting. Let's do that. Oh, a global pandemic again? Something like that, right? Like, I think if there was a case where none of us could get here, or there was a situation that it was very limited access, I would support that. Then we can all get online and still have our meeting, do our business as usual. But I think we already have incredible expectations on us as councillors. Most of us work day jobs as well. So just want everybody to keep that in mind. And so if it does pass and I don't show up on your screen, it's not that I don't want to be here. I can't either way.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to say, I had an incident last week. I hate to be self-referential, but I will. I was in Ottawa for the week for a conference, and I missed a very important meeting that I would have attended if it wasn't a council meeting, but it was, the liaison with the counties meeting. And I could have attended that from Ottawa, but I never dreamed that I had the right to. So I think that in an instance like that, that's probably going to be more common to us than other occasions, like illness. Like if you're sick, you're sick. But sometimes if you're on conference and you're away and you have the time, you can attend. So I support the motion.
Further comments? I'll make a few and then I'll give it back to you, Councillor Sabourin, to do a wrap up. So I've thought about this in great detail because I've probably spent more time away from council than many of you around the table due to my other employment, and there was no opportunity for me to join meetings, but realistically the schedule of what I was doing wouldn't have allowed it anyway. I missed the last council meeting because I was at a conference. I was in Toronto, and it's not, missing a council meeting is not a decision I ever took lightly. We do have an obligation to be here and to make decisions, obviously, that are important and contribute to the operation of the city and the well-being of our residents. And I think, during the pandemic, for better or for worse, we use technology to continue meeting at a time when we couldn't be in the same room together. and it was certainly finicky. There was at least one budget meeting where I couldn't, at the end, I lost my connection. I couldn't participate at the very end of it. We obviously saw what just happened here. But in the same vein, I think if there are opportunities to increase participation amongst counselors who can't be here for reasons, and whether it be health or they are away at conferences doing city business, I think there's some value to that. And I would hope that whenever the amendment for the procedural bylaw comes forward, it contains provisions within it that are very well detailed, that outline what situations outline when we can connect electronically, and maybe even look at potentially how many times per year. I mean, I don't feel that it would be abused if this was passed, but there's only one way to find out truly, and that is to have the option. But in the same vein, I hope that it wouldn't be abused, because at the end of the day, we are the most effective when we are here in person. And I think we have an obligation to be here in person as much as we possibly can, but we have to understand that we won't make every meeting. It's just impossible. There are other things that interfere with that. So at the end of the day, I will support this to see the proposed amendment to the procedural bylaw come forward, and I believe at that point we'll have to vote to accept that amendment, if I'm not mistaken. So there will be another opportunity to discuss. And one of the things I heard around the table today was there's a lot of ideas on how to outline this, and right now this is a motion to start that process, is my understanding. So we'll have an opportunity to debate what that will look like at a future date. So that being said, Councillor Savarin, if you'd like to wrap up.
I thank you for your comments, Mr. Mayor, and the opportunity to wrap up. And I just see this as an option to be more inclusive in the council meeting and to ensure that we have, as much as we carry a whole host of other activities and or other careers or whatever, that we have this option before us so that we can continue to contribute to the city and its workings and that stuff. That's the plain and simple of it. And like I say, and I see this as something that is not going to be abused. I see that it is just something that moves us a little bit closer to that more modern era of participation. That's where we're at. Thank you.
So I'm going to call the vote. All in favor of the motion as presented? All opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you.
See you on Zoom 2 weeks from
We have an additional resolution, Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship of Canada, proposed by Councillor Fred Ngunjo and seconded by Councillor Claude McIntosh. Whereas the Ministry of Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship of Canada has chosen to house applicants for asylum in the city of Cornwall, but has also chosen to do without properly involving the community. And whereas Cornwall is a warm and welcoming community, respectful of the rights and needs of refugees, and one which seeks to do what is right and be of service to our country. Whereas integration and welcoming take place at a local level, effective and respectful communication between the federal government and municipalities should be the foundation of a productive partnership. And whereas a proper partnership would see the people of Cornwall being properly informed, consulted, and involved through its municipal government, and our community assisted in dealing effectively with the economic impact of the role it is being asked to play. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Cornwall requests financial assistance from IRCC to strengthen the ability of the City of Cornwall to properly assist in the reception of asylum seekers. And now therefore be it further resolved that the City of Cornwall convey to the Minister of IRCC our respectful request that proper consultation and communication take place between the City of Cornwall and IRCC in order to harmonize the reception program for asylum seekers within our community. And now therefore be it further resolved that the Council of the City of Cornwall extend an invitation to officials of IRCC to meet with Council to discuss these matters.
Mover and seconder, Madam Clerk.
It was proposed by Councillor Gunjo and seconded by Councillor McIntosh.
Councillor Ngunjo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's what I'm going to call good timing, because we just have the MPP speaking about this problem tonight, and For sure, our community, the city of Cornwall, is facing a particular situation, whom we have to try to find a solution right away. So we see that we have newcomers, applicant of asylum in our community. For sure, Cornwall is open and is welcoming these people. That is not the question. Tonight, I would like to discuss about how we're gonna get more tools to do what we have to do to welcome these people in our community. Because for sure, they're gonna put more pressure in administration, all the staffs, and we need money. And how we gonna do with all those challenge? We need, I think so, we need support from the IRCC. But at the same time, we need to discuss how we're gonna manage this new situation that we're facing. Because by discussing, we're gonna find together ways, solutions to welcome all these new people who are coming here in our country because they know that it's a better place to live. So it's a big challenge that we have, trying to welcome them, but we need more tools, and I hope that my colleagues are going to support the motion tonight.
Thank you. Councillor McIntosh.
Yeah, what we heard from Derek Duncan tonight, just mind-boggling. It's not fair to the citizens, not fair to our services, and it's not fair to the folks who are basically being landed in Cornwall. It seemed that the IRC had no regard for citizens of Cornwall and our administration and everything else that goes with it. We were the last ones to find out, really. Even the person that sold the hotel knew it 3 weeks before we did. I'm sure this contract was signed a long time ago. I understand the company was formed in October, and the hotel, I think, was purchased in January or something. So they had knowledge of it. You know, the interesting thing is, I haven't heard one negative comment in this community about people arriving here. I really found that good to hear. It's good to know. I think the general sentiment, the people who live in Cornwall, they feel sorry for these people. Just think of it, they've traveled thousands of miles. They've gone from Texas to Florida to New York City and then to Plattsburgh, and said head that way through the bush and somebody will meet you on the other side. It's really a sad situation. And what Fred's alluded to is that we're not prepared as a community because nobody told us. It's like, you know, in-laws showing up at the front door with their suitcases. You don't know anything about it. So I would hope that, I hope they respond. I hope we get some response from the people in charge. I'm not hopeful. They haven't really shown much response in the last 3 or 4 weeks. But it's worth giving it a try. I hope Eric, maybe he's brought it up in the House, but I hope he does, if he hasn't, make people aware of this. And I'm glad, Fred, you put this out. I think it's a very good motion, and something needs to be done to get the ear of those people, the people in charge.
Councillor Bennett and Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I agree with you, Councillor McIntosh, that this has been mostly a very positive experience, and I've heard, as you have alluded to, that nothing negative about this. The problem is a positive can become a negative really quick. And if it does, it will be the sole fault of the IRCC. Their complete lack of knowledge of how this affects a municipality's resources is astounding to me. I can't believe that an organization who has one job doesn't know how this affects local municipalities. We need these people here. That's not the problem. we need them. We need workers, we need good people in our community, and they're looking to fill those roles, and there's just no support for them. And I think the IRCC should be ashamed of themselves and how they've handled this situation. And I don't know how heads aren't rolling over this. So I think we need to send a strong message to this group to get their act together, because they're doing no one any favors, and they're going to end up hurting these people that they're trying to help, and it's going to happen fast. So thank you, Councillor Nagunjo, for putting this forward, and I'll support it 100%.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Fred, for devising this motion. I support it wholeheartedly. I especially support the invitation to have IRCC come and speak to us.
Yeah.
Because their conduct here has been uneven. They were the ones, I believe, who entered into the contract with ACFO, who last summer and for a few months, maybe before and after the summer as well, did so much to help these people. In fact, they organized clothing drives, and I don't know if there were food drives involved, but certainly clothing drives. And they were helping them with language services. They were doing what we would want every community organization that had the opportunity to do, that they would do. So, and all of a sudden, that contract was canceled. So we need answers, because it doesn't serve us if immigrants come to Canada and keep moving on to the big cities. We need them here in small town Ontario, all the small towns. So we definitely need to have a conversation with IRCC. And I mean, we can accommodate a tremendous amount of immigration if we have the opportunity to marshal our forces. I just think of what Ottawa did with the Vietnamese boat people under Marion Dewar. They did a super heroic job of bringing people in and keeping them in their community. So absolutely, 100%, I support this motion. And especially, we need to talk to IRCC and let them know what we're willing to do.
Councillor Good.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I echo Councillor McDonald's sentiments. I wholeheartedly support this motion. You know, I think Cornwall has done an excellent job in welcoming these new immigrants to our community, and I also haven't heard anything negative about it. At my day job, we do a lot of work with new immigrants through children's child protection. And in teaching them kind of how our system works, which is often different than how things are from where they've come from. I think that what we need as a municipality is that level of communication that just keeps us keeps us up to date on what the intentions are, even if they're happening quickly, even if these changes come about and we don't have a lot of notice. To not be given any notice at all is really, really challenging. And so I think we would be missing an opportunity here if we were not putting this hand out and saying we want to have this conversation with you, and frankly we would like some financial assistance as well. So I do hope that I assume this motion will be passed without any problem, and I hope that they will come back to us and accept this request for first a consultation and then secondly for some financial assistance, so that we can properly accommodate all the needs of the new immigrants that we're seeing in our community.
Councillor Sabre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to answer one of Councillor McIntosh's questions, I believe our MP did raise this in question period either last Thursday or Friday, and he did get some answers from the minister. Whether they're satisfactory answers, that's a whole, it's called question period, not answer period. The thing that I'm looking at, I support this wholeheartedly in that, and I look at you, Mr. Mayor, you're our chief lobbyist for the city and that, and so within the motion, possibly, you might consider this a little bit of a friendly amendment, but just after the words "an invitation to," why not include the minister and senior officials responsible for the IRCC integration program? You're targeting who you want to bring in. You don't want to see low-level bureaucrats coming down and doing a site inspection and saying, this is great, and thank you, Cornwall, for telling us how good the job is, and that we have issues that we want to raise. We want to put together background information to the senior people so that they're aware of the concerns. We're not saying no to continuing to help. What we are saying is, this is what we are dealing with in providing the assistance to your program. How are you going to help us address it? And the reason why I say, include the minister, well, if you don't go to the top, the problem just doesn't really get to the top until someone says, how come people at the top weren't made aware right from the get-go? So I'm saying go to the top at the get-go now and take it from there. So I'm putting this out as a friendly amendment. It's up to Councillor Nagujo and Councillor McIntosh as to whether or not they want to reword their last little phrase.
It's a friendly amendment if there's no objections from the Assembly.
Councillor Ngunjo, are you okay with the friendly amendment?
Yes, no problem with that. I think if it's gonna bring the right people here, then it's okay.
Councillor McIntosh?
Yeah, it's good to hear from a former low-level bureaucrat.
I was so low,
Yeah,
I
he
didn't
was
even see
really low.
daylight.
No, Danny was right up there.
Councillor Gardner?
I would, just
Thank
one
you, Mr.
question.
Mayor.
If the minister doesn't know about this problem, he's got a bigger problem with his staff. And also, Eric mentioned Niagara Falls, and this got nothing to do with amendment. Perhaps you could contact the mayor of Niagara and see if they have the same problem. But, yeah, I'm okay with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No respect for this community at all from the federal government. And Fred, I'm glad you brought this forward, and I support it 100%. Based on the different experiences I've had with phone calls from our residents, I'm going to support this 100%. I do not want to be a counselor who is called about a situation and have to say, I don't know. And that's what the federal government has done and what this group has done. Left us in the dark, with no answers to be come forward. So thank you for that.
Further comments? I'll make a few. I will support this motion wholeheartedly. Thank you, Councillors Ngunjo and McIntosh. It's been frustrating from my position as the mayor of this community to be in the dark on this as much as anyone else. And, I spoke to Senator Clement today about this. I've been speaking to MP Duncan on a regular basis and MPP Quinn. I've already made comments about this in the local media and on CBC as well, so I'm at pains to repeat myself. But as I said earlier during this meeting, the federal government has not been a willing partner on this at all. And it's true. I don't think they understand the impact it's had on our services. I know that our General Manager of Human Services has tried to get that point across to RCC, and they're just not listening. Just as a quick update, after the interview I did on CBC Morning Radio and after MP Duncan raised this issue in the House, I did get an email from an Assistant Deputy Minister, and they are going to be here Friday of this week, and we will be meeting with them. However, as you mentioned, it's somewhat of a middle management position. It's not at the top. So once this motion passes, I will ensure to be reaching out to the minister directly to invite the minister specifically to come. I imagine they'll delegate. However, we should be getting someone at a senior level. That said, Councillor Ngunjo, do you want to wrap up?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Municipalities are the place where the newcomers are welcomed. So we are doing the job. And we need tools, money, support to do the job that we're facing. So it's very important. So I hope this motion is gonna pass tonight. And at the same time, I hope Cornwall is gonna be the first, once again, to do good things about the problem that we're facing, this new kind of problem that we are facing as community. So thank you very much for your support, and I hope this motion is gonna pass. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor of the motion? Unanimous. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the unfinished business listing for February 13th, and we're looking for a motion to receive this list.
Motion. Counselor Gardner, Counselor McDonald, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you.
In light of the fact that we have deferred the presentation, Mr. Mayor, perhaps we can do the same thing with the community risk assessment report?
Could I have a motion to defer? Counselor Hollingsworth, Counselor Bennett, all in favor?
Yes,
Carried, thank you.
Next report is the housing plan update with the recommendation that council receive this report.
Motion, Counselor Bennett, seconder, Counselor Good, discussion. Counselor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm scrambling to find my notes, but there are a few things that about this report. First of all, I have to commend the Social Housing Department for putting this together. We had most of the school trying to organize so much material, and it's so complex. And there's so many aspects of it. Anyway, the first thing that really struck me was I appreciated seeing the history of social housing in Ontario. I understood that a great deal more of it was flow-through money from the province through us to housing. But you state here that 50% of housing is handled through the taxpayers. That shocks me, because I thought that the province covered a lot more of the responsibility than the municipalities. And the great downloading still goes on, eh? This is why we lost Richelieu Daycare. There's so many ways to just send the bill lower down on the totem pole. And somewhere here I saw that affordable rent is $613. Is that according to a CMHC? It's in this report?
So through you, Mr. Mayor. Is that the average market rent, Elaine, sorry, or the?
Sorry, could I
Right
interrupt and invite you to come join the mic? We can't,
good.
sorry about that.
Yeah, actually, Lisa, I'll give you a chance to get up here. It's on page 184, and you haven't got that with you, but here, I believe it says the affordable monthly rent, according to CMHC, is $613,
Yeah, so,
and I'm thinking,
What do you get for
in what planet?
Right, so that's based on their study of what they call, that would be what is affordable if you look at, you would only be paying like 30% of your income. Sorry, through you, Mr. Ware, I apologize. So 30% is the threshold CMHC uses to say, you shouldn't be spending more than that. And when you look at the median household income is sitting at around 25,000, that means really residents who are at that income level shouldn't be paying more than that.
Okay, so that's a should be, not an actual is.
Exactly.
Okay. And I don't know if I had any other questions that I can find fast, but it was a huge, huge report, and thanks for it. This is one I'm going to keep.
Okay, excellent.
I'm not going to recycle. I'm sure we'll be referring to it often.
Great.
Thank you.
Good to go.
Wait 1 second. Further questions? Counselor Goodjoe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for this report. But you remember, when I went through doors to doors during election, housing was something coming back every time. So it's a huge problem that we have in our community. And tonight we have a lot of discussion, a lot of debate about different kind of topics. And I was wondering if we can discuss this report on one meeting, because it's something very, very important that we have to spend time on. That is something that I would like to propose tonight.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm sure Ms. Morgan and I would be more than happy to come and spend time with council to walk them through the report and what we're seeing in terms of housing and issues, and I'd say even some future housing needs we're anticipating even 5 to 10 years out.
Ms. Morgan?
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, we also are mandated by the province to provide them with an annual update to our 5-year housing plan. So every year, usually around May, we come and do a presentation to council about the housing update as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Good?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Great report. It is exciting to see that there are plans to increase the housing stock in Cornwall and SDG. I'm looking very forward to seeing that new building being completed up on the corner of 9th and McConnell. One of the statistics that was highlighted in there that I thought was just so poignant was the cost differential between shelter beds versus social housing, and it indicated something like 10 times the cost. Now that's 10 times the cost to our municipality, right? I mean, effectively, it's not, other people aren't paying for that on their own. So when we consider the value of our investment in social housing, we really need to keep that in mind, that the alternative being temporary shelter beds is going to make us go broke very quickly at 10 times. Is that accurate?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that's very accurate. So what we know is any sort of emergency or even transitional housing are some of the most expensive forms of housing. The biggest return of investment on what we would put into housing is building more affordable housing. It also ties into a lot of programming around housing first and how you address homelessness, because research now shows us that if you really want to make an impact with someone who's homeless, you get them housed, then you wrap around them and try to keep them in that housing, and that has the most long-term benefit. So emergency shelters are, it's like the ER room of a hospital, right? It's like where people who in a true emergency should go, but it really should not be a place they're stopping at.
Great. Okay, so thank you for that. And I really love that you spoke about the wraparound service, because that is, it seems like that's the way we're going, and that's the kind of verbiage that's being used now. I'm curious because I was just looking at the rent geared to income, and under the bullets there, the last one there was that their income and assets are within the allowable limits. And now I just wanted to ask about those allowable limits. Where is that threshold in where we will consider somebody eligible for like a rent geared to income type housing, if you know them offhand?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. They've recently changed, so I don't have our most but there is household income limits and other thresholds that are set for residents in order to qualify for RGI. So that's something I'm assuming the general manager would also agree with. We can go back and get back to you with.
Yeah, I would be curious to know that. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I think that's all I.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I believe our latest asset levels are $50,000 for singles and $75,000 for, so they're quite reasonable and match typically across the province what other service managers are doing.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, motion to receive. Vote on the motion. All in favor? Carried, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
It's hard to see.
You would use the comment. Municipal grant application with a recommendation that council consider a request for financial funding in the amount of $10,000 to the African, Caribbean and International Association of Eastern Ontario.
Motion. Councillor McDonald.
I'd like
second.
to move that motion.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Good. Discussion. Councillor Hollingsworth and Councillor Dupel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one question, Ms. Bailey. That $10,000 is technically part of our budget, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is. It's included in the budget.
It's out of 120 we've set aside?
Correct. At 170.
Second question, just out of curiosity, and I don't know, Ms. Bailey, if you can answer, but I think you might be able to. Is this the third year this organization has received funding from the municipality, or is it fourth year?
They have received funding in the past in 2019, 20, and in 22. Our policy says it cannot be 3 years in a row.
Right. So just as an FYI, Your Worship, technically speaking, this organization has received money from the city 3 years running. Policy specifically says, year number 4, you're on your own.
But they missed 2021,
So this is technically only their 3rd year.
19, 20, and 22. So technically, this is their 2nd year in a row.
Consecutive.
Now, does the policy, because I can't remember the actual wording, does it say in a row? So taking a year off means you get to reboot all over again? Is that how because I can't remember. I spent a lot of time with the policy, but I can't remember that
Apologize, I
little
just.
proviso, because I think that's important.
That should maybe be included in the application form too, so they're not wasting their time.
Can't remember if I saw it in the agenda.
I believe it's 3 years in a row.
Okay.
But if you give me a minute, I'll look.
Okay, well, if you could perhaps try it, and ultimately, I'm gonna support the funding, but that policy, we spent a real significant chunk of time trying to iron out all the glitches, so, and I'm a policy person. I think if the policy says this is what we do, then that's kinda what we should do, otherwise, why have a policy? So, yeah, I'm assuming that they haven't, it doesn't say in a row, so I'll support it. But I'm curious, Your Worship, to see what the actual wording of the policy says. Anyway, I'll yield the floor to my colleagues. Thank you.
Councillor Dupel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I was just going to clarify that it was in the budget of 170,000 as well.
Councillor McDonald? Do you have comments?
Oh, well, I was going to support this motion, and I think especially because of the summer festival. I know an organization that I'm a member of. We've had a couple of summer festivals, but it's really difficult to reach out to everybody. You know, you send invitations to immigrants and drop them in various places, but it's pretty wonderful that this is an organization that already has a group of, obviously, a population, and they're having a festival in the summer to which the general public is invited. This is absolutely super. I hope that as soon as they lock in their funding, they get a date, because Lamoureux Park, for example, gets booked so early, so I hope this happens fast.
Councillor Gardner?
I just have a question for Mrs. Bailey. What are they, I'll start this way. The policies and the criteria that we have, does that include like ballet dancing for children and adults for $500? They paid for the barbecue, drinks, and animation, and now they want $2,000 for it. And the events at the library, do they have to pay to rent the library? Because my understanding that they don't have to do that. So why do they want $500 from the library? Number three. Number four, they list on number one, the issue, $700 for animation. And then at number 11 in the report, $2,000 for part of animation shows. So why are they asking for money for 2 animation? And I'm on the, well, I've been put on this committee, and I'd like to ask our CFO, are these part of what they can ask for money for?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it is. It's eligible expenses that we have seen in the past. the animation is not there twice. One is for Black History Month, and the other is for the barbecue that's happening in the summer. So it's two different expenses that will be incurred. But this is what we've seen in applications to bring people together, to show inclusiveness. It's open to the entire municipality, et cetera.
I just wanted that clarified. I will support it. I'm sorry that they didn't come and ask for the money when the committee's in place. To me, the committee's redundant if they're going to bypass us. I think we should have the committee should have had notice, and we should have looked at what they were asking for before we approved it. And to ask for money before the committee is formed, to me, is not the way it should be done. It should be done before.
I think Ms. Bailey would like to comment on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the application process every year is in October. This application was submitted at that time. In a normal council year, those applications would have been reviewed in November, December, and decisions would have been made in time for them to have their event. But Black History Month is this month. And the reason why we brought this application directly to council for review. There are others that are with administration right now since October that will wait for the committee's review.
So are we opening the door to other committees coming whenever they feel like it and not during the timetable?
I don't think so. I think, through you, Mr. Mayor, that this is a special circumstance.
I would agree. Part of the reason is that the grants committee has just been struck, and that has to do with the next item in communications, the ombudsman's report, so this is an unusual circumstance. The committees will receive the remainder of the applications, and we don't intend to make this a regular practice, but because this is Black History Month this month, that's why it's on the council agenda for
I
approval.
understand that, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to say I'm not in favor. I am in favor. But there are questions that we ask at committee meetings that I want to ask tonight before this is approved.
I appreciate your due diligence, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you.
I believe before I get to you, Councillor Good, the CAO has an answer based on the application requirements.
Yeah, it says, through you, Mr. Mayor, in the municipal grants program policy under program funding and eligibility that if an organization has received grant funds for 3 consecutive years, they must wait 2 years before applying for a grant through this program. So they're allowed 3 consecutive, and then they have to wait 2 years.
So in this case, I'm out of order.
Councillor Hollingsworth, I'll let you.
Does it clarify to the previous question, Your Worship, with your indulgence? So technically, they had a year in between, so they haven't gone past the 3 years consecutive, correct?
They haven't received grants for 3 consecutive years.
Thank you, Your Worship, for your indulgence. I appreciate it.
Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I'm very excited to see that this has been brought to council, given the situation that's going on with our grants committee not being in place at this moment. Clearly, it is time sensitive. We're already halfway through the month, which is Black History Month, and that is their primary event, which they're asking for the bulk of their funding for, $8,000. So certainly, I'm sure they're waiting with bated breath to find out what the results are of this decision, and definitely, you know, questions I think are in order, and I'm glad to know that they haven't been immediately disqualified because they haven't applied 3 years consecutively. So I wholeheartedly support this. I think this is going to be an amazing event to create cultural connections, and I think it will help us, especially in the discussion we just had about the recent immigrants who have come in here, and it allows them an opportunity to celebrate some of their culture and see themselves represented within our community. So I think that this is a really great ask for this money to be put towards. I will be looking forward to attending these events myself, because I think that it's very important that we show our support in that way as well, just as an aside. And to me, looking at the budget and the way that they put this through here, it looks very reasonable. The bulk of the costs are on food and drinks, and it's only like $10 a person. So I mean, if anything, that's a modest price tag to put to it. So I'm really hopeful that this decision comes to them with enough time that they can put something together. I'm sure they already have some plans in place that they're ready to go with, but I'm sure this will help alleviate some of the pressure that they're probably feeling at this time. So I support this.
Councillor
Mr.
Bennett.
Mayor, if I can ask one quick question of our CFO.
I'll let you have one quick question, Councillor Gardner.
Yeah, it'll be quick. How fast will we give them the 10,000 bucks right up front, or is it going to be given for the events that they're putting together?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, once an application is approved, the funding is provided in full with a reconciliation through reporting.
For the money they'll be spending in the summer
Will be given to
will be
them.
given to them now?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember these applications for the last few years, and they were good, and they were always scored. And you have to hit a certain level for it to even be considered. So, has anybody looked at this using our scoring system to make sure that it hit that minimum number? Because I'm looking through it now, and I don't have the scoring sheet in front of me, but it looks pretty good. But I'm just wondering if we actually, if we look at it, make sure it hits all our criteria.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what we did for this application is we didn't score it per se, but understanding that they have submitted applications for this type of initiatives in the past, and they passed the scoring, we used that as a guide.
Okay, no, that's fair. I just wanted to make sure that, like when I looked through it, it looked very similar to me, so I just wanted to make sure that if you've looked it over and are satisfied with it, then so am I. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they also submitted all the necessary information relating to, directors' budgets and different things as well.
Thank you. I wanted to ask that question, I'd forgotten, so thank you.
Councillor McIntosh.
Yeah, I was just glad somebody stepped up to the plate for Black History Month. We seem to be asleep at the switch on this one, as have in the past few years. Something Councillor, or Mayor Bernadette Clement and myself, I'm not going to use the word champion, but we pushed for that. I must have missed it at the report, but what's the events for Black History Month?
The events themselves, I believe that they're listed.
I'm missing that page.
There's a number of activities that are listed on page 236.
Okay, I can look at it after, that's no problem.
And a barbecue in the summer.
Yeah, I'm missing that page. Anyway, okay, I'm just happy to see them doing it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? All opposed? Carried, thank you.
Our next report is the closed meeting investigation for the Municipal Grants Review Committee Working Group, with the recommendation that council receive the final report prepared by the Office of the Ombudsman and implement the recommendations contained in the final report.
Motion? Councillor McDonald, Councillor Gardner, discussion. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, as one member that sat on this committee, and looking over the recommendations, I don't have any problem with them. When we first looked at this, the draft of this report a while back, when it first came to us, I had some thoughts on how I thought this committee should run and why things should be kept in camera. Just because I felt we needed to protect these organizations and their financial records and all those kinds of things. So we asked questions back then, and I was comfortable with the answers. So these 6 recommendations, I wouldn't have any problem operating under these recommendations moving forward. So I'm good to accept this report.
Yeah, thank you. For discussion? Councillor Sabri?
Just one quick comment with regards to recommendation 6, which is a video or audio recording of the, that's something that we're not doing in a regular practice now, is it? So I'm just wondering, is this something that if we adopt or accept all of these recommendations, we're gonna have to start implementing a video audio recording process for this committee meetings?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
I would also add that in my response to the Ombudsman's office, I indicated we would implement that as is feasible, because we do have some restrictions in terms of some of the rooms we meet in currently for our committees. And they do acknowledge that in their report, that we acknowledge we do that as is feasible, and they were happy with that, so we will do our best. Further discussion?
Just a
Councilor
quick
Gunja?
question. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. I would like to know if there is a possibility to add like a formation for staff to avoid this kind of problem next time, or to keep staff updated. Is it possible to get this? Is it something doable?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, train the committee staff?
I mean, because if I understand, at the beginning it was connected to some. I was not here, so I didn't understand well. So I remember there were a situation where the bylaw were not respected or something like that, and the committee went through a process to give grants. And is there? So I was wondering if there is a possibility to update all or ourselves or everybody about how things work, the rules, to keep everybody. As I see my colleague, we are asking every time about the bylaws, how does this works. So maybe about some topic or some committees, we can, at the beginning of the committees, give the like the bylaw, the information to the committees to make them in touch or aware of how things work, how the bylaws works, to avoid this kind of situation.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at the beginning of every term, the clerk will go to the committee meetings and update them or try to inform them of the conflict of interest and the procedural bylaw. So yes, as soon as this is adopted and the changes are made to the procedural bylaw, that round of training will begin.
Thank you very much.
I would imagine this will be something that Mr. Fleming will deal with when he speaks to us in a couple of weeks. Don't we have an integrity commissioner?
Code of conduct.
He would speak about conflict of interest, through you, Mr. Mayor. He would also perhaps talk about closed meeting.
I know he did the last time.
Yes, but the committees themselves need to hear the same message.
That's
and
true.
so that's why we would
Brilliant,
go to the chairs and the rest of the committee to do that same training.
Further discussion? I see none. Just want to thank the Office of the Ombudsman for their report. And, you know, at the end of the day, we made a mistake. It happens. All we can do is learn from it and move forward, and we plan to do that. All in favor of the recommendation? Carried. Thank you.
Going back to our PAC report for 1424 Obeng Avenue, with the recommendation that council approve the subject site be rezoned from residential 20 to residential 2011, with the site-specific exceptions outlined in this report.
Motion? Councillor Hollingsworth, seconder. Councillor McDonald. Discussion. Councillor Gardner.
I had asked to pull it, number 6. I just have a question for Mark Boileau. Mark, have we met all the residents' concerns that they had at the PAC meeting?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe we have. I think we're going to continue to work with them, though, on some of the issues that they raised regarding parking and traffic and that sort of thing. And we'll probably work with the Department of Infrastructure to just make sure that perhaps, they had raised about parking on the streets and how it can
lighting.
affect. So we may just have another look at it to see whether it's appropriate for parking to be happening on the streets. Certainly, we have this same problem at all our schools to a greater extent than what we're experiencing here, so, but we can have a look at that.
The reason I ask is because the residents were really concerned about lighting and that sort of stuff, so, thank you. I'd like to, at some point, somebody get back to me and let me know what's going on.
Perhaps what we can do, what we may be able to do is just, the subject of lighting had come up as well. And that's something that I'll probably speak with our chief building official about, as well as street lighting. And we'll get a report, I think probably just communicate to council with an email, just to let you know as quickly as possible what we have seen.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you.
We have no new business motions, Mr. Mayor, so moving on to bylaws. Bylaws 2023, 10 to 14 inclusive listed on the agenda are being presented to council for adoption.
Motion, Councillor Bennett, seconder. Councillor McIntosh, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you.
And now, if any council members have any reports from standing, advisory, special, and ad hoc committees of council.
Councillor Good?
Yes, I would like to report that I've had a first inaugural meeting with the president of Le Village as well as the president from the Renaissance Association, and we're looking forward to having our first meeting together. We discussed some of the activities that have been going on previously with the Le Village BIA committee, and I'm looking forward to working with them on some improvements in that area. We also had our first Portland's meeting, our Portland's co-owners meeting, I should say, which was quite productive, I think, and we got through some pretty important documents in that initial meeting with the new members. I'm not sure if any of my colleagues want to add anything about. Actually, there was only one other colleague who was there, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if you had anything to add for that, but it was nice to all be in a room together. That's for sure.
I would just add that it was a productive meeting. Look forward to continuing the work at the Portlands. Councillor McIntosh.
Yeah, on that subject, could we not get the minutes of the meetings?
Yes.
CC them to council members? I thought, I was under the impression we always got them because I was on the board, but apparently we don't. The other thing is too, I want to point out, I went snowshoeing in Gaynell Park a couple of days ago, and you've got it open, it looks great. Done a good job clearing up the fallen trees and the brush and everything else.
Well, I'll make sure those are circulated to council.
Yeah.
Councillor McIntosh. Councillor Dupel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to report that I've had my first orientation session with the Cornwall Community Police Board and the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. Both were very productive meetings, and I look forward to serving as a member on both those committees for the next 4 years.
Thank you. Further reports? Councillor Gunja?
Yes, just want to share that I had my first meeting with Heritage Committee, so I'm still waiting for the report that I will CC to all the councillors. It was a very instructive meeting, and for a newcomer, I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you. Further reports?
It's a good committee.
Seeing none?
We have no notices of motion, so moving on to the confirming bylaw. Need a motion to adopt that bylaw 15.
Motion. Councillor McDonald, seconder. Councillor Dupel, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Before adjournment, Mr. Mayor, I just want to remind everyone that we have a series of meetings set to deal with the budget. Those meetings are on February 16th, 22nd, 23rd, March 1st and 2nd, all beginning at 3 p.m. And the next regular public meeting of council will be held on February 27th.
Thank you. Before we go to adjourn, I'd like to remind council that we are resuming our in-camera portion. So after we adjourn this meeting, we'll do a quick 5-minute break and then reconvene and re-enter in camera.
One quick query on the budget. In past years, Tracy, you've invited us to ask for reports and that. Is the invitation still open for this budget?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Sure.
But don't.
Motion to adjourn. Counselor Bennett, Counselor Gunjo, all in favor? Carried. We're adjourned to the public meeting. Thank you. Good night.